Yes, as Cami and I were just discussing, and I think that she was sharing a bit of before I hopped back on. Let's talk a little bit about prompts and stories and impact before our first speaker today, because I know that we've had a few days to reflect on those, and also the ways in which we want to tell our own stories, our own projects. Does anyone want to share first on those two writing prompts?
Hello.
Salut Jeanne.
Hello. Is that a story concerning our project or not at all? It's something else?
It could be a story that has impacted and influenced your project, or you in general, stories that linger with us and understanding why. Whether that's a story you learned as a child or it's a video game that you absolutely love. Putting out stories that we really appreciate. I'm thinking of ones I really adore in my own life. Ones that I love to go back to.
Salut Léa.
We've read some stories, we've heard them. It's okay to share them.
Maybe I can go first.
Mm-hmm.
I write a long story, but I will.
That's okay.
I will read it faster. So I read when I write. When I was young, I was like a dragon, said my mom. Then I grew up, and I don't know why I stopped moving and talking. I was totally in my mind. I think I started to create stories and characters, another life in some way. A doctor found something wrong near my heart, and I had a big surgery when I was 8. And after that, I was fascinated by death. My parents are not readers and don't really like or know artistic stuff. So I discovered books through the school library, and I fell in love with all the stories I could read. I never thought that I could possibly be a writer or even an illustrator, because I knew nobody doing these jobs, no woman and no Black women around me. So I grew up with a lot of stories into my mind. I drew a lot, and when I was at the middle school, one of my French teacher said that he thinks that I'm a writer. And at this moment, I was shocked because nobody said that to me before. A few years later, someone else, an adult, saw my drawings and say, "Hey, you know, you can draw for Disney, you're talented." I didn't believe him because, but those were two seeds that these 2% put deeper inside me. The seeds have grown up, and the imposter syndrome too. My parents don't have much money, so I chose to get by myself, and I worked harder to be an animator because I wanted to work into the animated movies industry. And I integrate a writers club for 6 years, and I wrote every day. I was drawing every day, and then I clicked. I found my way to write and draw. It was magic. I succeeded, I suppose, because in the meantime, I worked for big studios like Ubisoft or for Disney series and others. I became a writer and illustrator because when I was a kid, I took care of this little flame I have into my heart, and I always wanted to follow my dreams because I believe everything is possible when you believe it. And if you are alive, you must do everything what you want. Don't wait for someone to give you the right for anything. Take your opportunity.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that and reflecting on your own story. And how do you share a story that's a whole life in such a short span of time? And I think that you did that beautifully. Thank you. And that is really interesting. And it's very helpful for me to know your story because I just wrote down people that I want to introduce you to. when you come to the US. Now I better understand you. And I'm like, oh, you should meet this person at Warner Brothers. You should meet this person that works in 2D animation. So thank you for sharing with me the things that matter to you and how you got to where you are and part of this program. Yeah, and I think that that's certainly an identifiable story for many people of you're an artist, but you don't necessarily come from an artistic background. And so how do you make that work? Coralie was, I think, very similar yesterday, sharing her story as a UX designer at Niantic, where she's coming from Puerto Rico. And she wants to be part of the games industry, and she has to leave one very, I don't know how familiar you all are with Puerto Rico, but it's a very small island off the coast of the US, and she had to fly all the way across the world to get there. So I think that those stories are very, very relatable. Thank you. With a little bit of time, does anyone else want to share their reflection? It can be personal, like Joy's, or it can be related to other stories like within your work or things that have inspired you. I know it's nerve-wracking to share about ourselves, but I think it's important, especially because you're coming to this program throwing yourself into personal work. So to be open about that work and open about what inspires you really can inspire others to support you in that endeavor.
As I said, not Monday, I don't know when, but I said that for my part, I'm not such receptive into screenplays or stories in movies or in game. I'm very, very sensitive with pictures, with ambience, atmospheres,
Sure.
all that. So for me, it's very, very difficult to work on a storyline, and even to write a story of a daily thing or a family affair. To think in storyline, it's very difficult for me. It's particular, but
No, I think that that's also a very real and understandable experience that many people are visually driven, and it's easier to communicate those in images or in video. Let me ask this, for your project for Micromega, how have stories impacted the creation of that? What stories have you read? It reminds me a lot of Atlas, the mythology of Atlas, pushing the boulder. I think that that imagery is very clearly there. It reminds me of other stories such as, you know, these two well-known characters in The Hobbit and looking at the work of J.R.R. Tolkien. So, you know, trying to connect this kind of like teamwork, who do you resonate with? And then actually, does anyone like Sega Genesis? Maybe the console, the Sega Genesis? I mean, do you know if it's called something else in French?
I know it's Sega Genesis too.
Is it also Sega Genesis?
So
there's one of my favorite, actually not one of, my favorite video game is called Toe Jam and Earl, and it's from 1992, and it's about a tiny little character and a really fat character, and they're going and exploring interdimensional planets, and they're trying to bring funk back. So it kind of reminded me of my favorite plot. I'll post a link to it. So in talking about the stories that influence us, what were stories that inspired your project?
My project, it was not story. Actually, it was my story, but not as a storyline, more than what I did with my story. You know, I want to share my reflection on my story and what my characters will do during the play, the game. It will be more something like a psychological metaphor of what I worked during not all my life, but a big part of my life. So I speak about my story, but not with showing my story. It's a little bit complicated.
That's very interesting, though. Thank you for sharing your perspective on that. We've talked a lot about script writing, and I know that you mentioned that from day one of wanting to, hey Tyler, of wanting to focus on script writing. Is this still something that you feel like would be beneficial for you when you come to New York, and having someone really work with you to figure out how to communicate that? Because you have it visually, certainly, but then making sure there's story beats and moments that you can follow as a player.
Yeah, it may be cool. I don't know if my game needs that or not. Perhaps he don't need a very strong story. I don't know yet, but
we'll figure it
speak
out.
about it.
Yeah.
We
No,
don't
thank
know.
you for sharing, and thank you, Joy.
Thank you.
I'm going to pass it to Tyler, who hopped on. He's our first speaker of the day. Tyler is a lovely friend and colleague from New York. We've worked in mixed reality together, and actually the first time we met, I covered him for an online magazine, him and his business partner, who I also know, David. But Tyler is here speaking about some current projects that he's been working on in the past couple years, some really cool stuff that we caught up about recently, and I'll let you do a deeper bio on that and those projects, and it's all yours. And let us know if you need any help with screen sharing.
Sure. Hey, everyone. How's it going? I'm glad to be your first speaker of the day. And yeah, thank you, Dara. Like Dara mentioned, we met because Dara covered me in, I guess it was VR Scout, I think. And so we met, and we had kind of been in same circles and stuff in New York, and that was kind of how we kicked everything off. But I was trying to think about how to focus this kind of talk today. I've worked in virtual reality industry for about 5 years, and it's been so many different types of projects. But I was taking a look at some of your bios and stuff. It sounds like you're mostly creating kind of virtual reality art projects and games and applications. So I'm going to kind of run through a little bit of my experience and how I got into virtual reality, and then focus specifically on the game that I've been producing for the last 2 years and is actually launching to Quest in 2 weeks. So I'm kind of in the throes of that right now, and I'm really excited about it. So I think I'm going to focus mostly on that, but I do want to kind of talk a bit about the other projects that I've worked on, so you can see how I've kind of gotten to the point where I am. So as a quick background to me, I started my career out in journalism, actually. I was working at ABC News as a producer on the show 2020, so news magazine. So I was following all these different kind of stories. And in about 2015, one of the first kind of organizations that started getting 360-degree cameras and started using virtual reality was news organizations, because journalism is really awesome in 360 degrees. So I was trained on cameras and learned how to essentially shoot in 360. And I fell in love with virtual reality and decided that I wanted to commit fully to that. And I quickly moved into I left ABC News and started producing my own projects and learning about game engines and understanding kind of more not just video, but understanding how to do interactive. And so my first projects were, I'm actually going to share a screen so I can show, let's see. This is just my website. Can everyone see? Does this work?
Yes.
So I have a bunch of different projects, but I wanted to kind of highlight a couple of them. So my very first virtual reality project was called Cloud of Petals, and I partnered with an artist friend of mine, Sarah Mayohas, who's now really big in kind of NFT land, to create a large-scale installation with Red Bull Arts New York in the basement. And the way we approached it was she had already kind of created this, she had scanned in all these digital petals, and we needed to find a way to kind of turn it into virtual reality. So I worked with a number of developers and created this large scale installation with 6 different headsets hanging from the ceiling, where users could, over I think a 6-month period, it was up for almost half a year, users could walk in and just put the headset on their head, and there would be very simple interactions. And I actually found that was super duper effective, because most people weren't doing virtual reality at that time, and we didn't need to overcomplicate it. So our interactions were very passive or very simple. You know, it was very meditative, very you know, low story, abstract, but really unique interactions. So I'm just gonna like kind of show this video a little bit. There were, these are the kind of different scenes within the headsets, like just very meditative, very simple, very beautiful, and easy to kind of access and understand for anyone. And I really appreciated this type of virtual reality because I found that anyone could just jump into it and it wasn't, you know, overly complicated. And so from that, I started focusing specifically on essentially meditative virtual reality because I just saw how effective that it was. And so my next, I did a number of projects in between, but my next kind of big project was the Oddly Satisfying Spa, which is where Dara and I connected. And this was essentially a set of two different location-based experiences, LBEs, which is a good term to know in virtual reality land, where people would go in and essentially try a number of virtual reality experiences that were based on relaxation and meditation and oddly satisfying content, essentially. So these are some pictures of that. This was obviously a physical installation too, but the kind of crux of it was the virtual reality pieces. So we had a virtual reality massage that we developed. We had this really amazing virtual reality piece called Cosmic Sugar that David, my partner in this, created. And then obviously just a number of really beautiful installations. And this was a pop-up for 3 days and Vice covered it and it kind of blew up and I decided, okay, I'm gonna make this my full thing. So I went into creating a permanent installation in Dumbo, which I mean, this is all New York, Brooklyn speak, but these are different neighborhoods within Brooklyn. In Dumbo, where we went even more full on and created a permanent installation. And we started to kind of play with the idea of virtual reality, not necessarily being just headsets, but also spatialized audio. You know, like when you're creating virtual reality, the audio is a huge element of things that affect you. And so we created an installation where it was just audio, pitch black, just audio. And we still kind of considered that virtual reality in a way. An installation where you were on a water bed that vibrated and strobed in your eyes to kind of give you this, you know, this certain effect. And then a number of virtual reality meditations that were very simple. A user could just click the button and lay back and just experience virtual reality, experience these scenes. Some interactive pieces. So this here is that same Cosmic Sugar. It's a particle system that you can play with these particles, but we made it hand tracking so that users could just sit down in this chair, put on a VR headset, press a button, and use their hands to manipulate all these particles for about 10 minutes. So there were a number of other installations too, but I think that what I've kind of learned through the years is that simplicity in design is really important because lots of people don't know how to handle virtual reality, even still today. You know, there are not common UX practices that we're developing them, but simplicity is really key for getting an audience that's not necessarily a typical gaming audience. So with location-based experiences, you're getting people who are just essentially you know, buying tickets, and they can be any person. They're not necessarily someone who's obsessed with virtual reality, going in, buying a game and deciding to play it. These are just people who are coming in off the street and have no experience with technology, you know, usually. So for that sense, my design principles have always been around simplicity, making it really easy. You know, interactivity is important, but really focus on one really core mechanic or one really core interaction so that users don't have to learn too much within the game. And this has been my kind of sweet spot in terms of the types of things that I've designed and worked on. So these are just like some projects that kind of helped shape my love of virtual reality and meditation in general. And then for the last 2 years so obviously this, well, I guess not obviously, but the pandemic kind of ruined my space. It made it very hard to keep a touchy, personal, small scale experience alive. So I closed down this spa and quickly after began working on the game that I'm about to launch with a team called Hukuiku. And that is called Maloka. All right, let's see. So for the last 2 years, I've been working on Maloka, and this is a game, a meditation game, a meditation platform that is launching to Quest, as I said, in 2 weeks, well, 12 days. So it's launching on the 14th of December. And I can talk to you a little bit about that process of getting an application onto Quest and getting it accepted to the store and going through the entire process of working with Oculus as well. But essentially, I'm going to play this little game. This is this little video. This is a well-being universe that we're developing. So in the world of metaverse, we're trying to kind of carve out the spot of self-care, well-being, meditation, consciousness within virtual reality. And so we developed this game, and I'm going to play this video because that's the best way to kind of showcase it.
Meditation is probably the best gift you can give to yourself. You just won't know until you experience it.
So there's obviously a lot going on with that, but you get the idea. It's a very calming, peaceful, otherworldly kind of experience. We had to develop a very, unique kind of art style, low poly. We did a lot of work to make sure that, it was all optimized for the Quest and that we maintained the frame rate. But essentially, just to run through this a little bit, this is a game that helps you develop a meditation practice. And so our founders, the people who are funding this, are 2 meditation experts, Suki and Beth Novogratz, and they've basically been working in the meditation world for 20 or so years. They wrote a book called Just Sit, and that kind of basis of meditation is what is driven the kind of game design. So in my mind, virtual reality is like a really amazing platform for mindfulness. I hate this picture because these are obviously very outdated headsets, but bear with me. Virtual reality is amazing because when you are using virtual reality, you're fully committed. So in a world where we're so, using so many different things, we're connected all the time, we're so distracted. In a weird way, virtual reality is like no distractions. And this is, I think, an important thing to think about when you're designing virtual reality. there are no distractions. People are fully committed to it. Once they commit to it, they're in it. They need to like spend their time in it. So as you're developing these types of games, you know, think about that this is actually in a way a really great way to just be super focused. And I think that's amazing. So in this game, your mind is an island. So the idea is that as you grow your mind, as you meditate, your island also grows. And so it starts out very blank. And every time you meditate, you get a reward, which is an object that you can place onto your island and move it around and organize it however you want. You also have plants that when you garden them, they start growing over time. And this is all maintained in like kind of data in the back end through an API. And so every user has a free account as well. So at the beginning of your journey, you are matched with this very lovely, cute little, it's called a spirit. And as you work, as you meditate, your spirit and you gain consistency, your spirit evolves and changes and becomes more mature. And then these are kind of example of your rewards. So our entire kind of model is that when you meditate, you gain rewards and you decorate your island and grow plants. It becomes more lush, more beautiful. You can spend more time there. And then at the same time, when you gain rewards, sometimes you unlock new parts of your island or new portals to different meditations. So the meditations are designed with experts, a number of different experts. So we have 3 main types right now. One is a focus meditation, and it's just kind of these procedurally generated graphics. The other is a movement meditation. It's basically kind of like simple yoga, seated yoga. And the other is a sound bath, and that's actually made to shut your eyes. And I think that's actually really unique, is that, you know, in virtual reality, who says you have to keep your eyes open all the time? You know, you can shut your eyes in virtual reality. It's just like your normal reality. You can shut your eyes. And I love that kind of design principle. These are the spaces. So as you go through the game, you unlock new experiences. And so once you start kind of learning how to meditate in this focus environment, you then get access to the stretching environment and the sound environment. So it's very simple in general. The rules are very simple, which is, like I said, something I find very important. You know, I like to be able to explain these things out. Another element though is that you also have, there's a mobile app that's associated to it. And so you can also meditate in your mobile application. You can see your lovely little spirit, interact with it, and you can view your island and show people. And actually a feature that I just launched, well, we launched in the kind of our last beta. It's in beta right now, so anyone can actually play this game for free if you have a Quest. But also you can take photos in virtual reality and save them in your gallery as images or videos, and so that you can easily share out to social media, which is another thing to consider with these types of games, is like, how do people see what it looks like? And that's essentially it from Maloka. I know I've kind of rambled on for a little bit, but this is, you know, taken about 2 years. It's been a big budget, and it's a large team. So the team I work with is a full development team actually located in the UK and Poland. And then, you know, I work with sound designers on the West Coast. All the kind of finance team, the whole kind of business team is all located in New York. And a bunch of other members are in Mexico. So this is also a fully remote project. So the entire Maloka has been built during the pandemic, which is actually really amazing and quite interesting. And something that I also want to elevate in people's minds is that, you know, you don't have to be in the same room with people. You can engage people in lots of different ways, you know, which is why I also love that, you know, this digital playgrounds, you know, you all are working in France, I suppose, but, you know, you have access to people all over the world to get your games developed and to connect with people. And so that's it from me. And I guess like maybe how much time do we have? Like if we want to do questions and stuff like that, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Okay, wait, I see some questions.
I see, yes, one from Melanie. You can, it's up to you if you want to share it aloud, or if writing is also just fine for everyone too.
Oh yeah, I just didn't want to interact. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it looks really, really nice. I love the graphic design, especially for a Quest project, which has a lot of technical limitations.
Yeah.
But I was really curious about, as you said, it's a big project with a big team, and it's free so far, so I can't wait to try it myself. But so, pardon me if that's an odd or not appropriate question, but how does it work? How do you pay people in the end?
You know, there are rich people in the world who just, they invest in these types of things. It's very, very hard, and very, very lucky that I'm on this project, because the majority of these things need a business model early on. Right now, this game is trying to gain users, because everyone who has an island has an account. And so by making it free, we get more people to use it and kind of adopt it. The longer term goal with this is to be part of kind of the metaverse a little bit more. So the investors who created this, they also are big, you know, Bitcoin crypto people. So they have kind of a vested interest in building this side of the metaverse. And this is more of an investment as opposed to something that's trying to make money consistently.
Thank you. Okay, I understand.
Yeah, but that is very atypical. Like I would suggest, you know, and I work with Oculus a lot, but I would, you know, you need to pay for, usually you have a demo, and then, you know, you have people pay. We're actually building onto the subscription model that just came out on Quest. And we're waiting for a little bit more data to like see how other games are going. But there's about, I think, 6 to 10 titles right now on Quest that are subscription models. And Oculus manages those subscriptions and does all of the gatekeeping for that, and all of the, you know, taking in money and stuff. But then I think they take 30% of the cut. So that's also how Oculus is making money.
I could go to see it myself, but can you tell me more about this subscription model? The users pay every month for have access to games by Oculus?
Yeah, it's still kind of developing in terms of what actually is going to work. You know, people are a little tired of subscriptions maybe, but you can set however you want. It's basically like an in-app purchase. So you decide where your wall is in terms of that, however you want people to pay. So it can be add-on content, like you get this much of a game free, and then to go into this part, you need to subscribe. Or it can be at the very front of the game, like to play the game, you need to subscribe. Or, you know, you have 14 days free, and then after that, you need to pay. So the model is still evolving.
I see. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Really interesting.
But yeah, that I would really, really highly say look into that, because it is a brand new model, and actually Oculus is interested in promoting that model, you know? So if you have ideas and things that are developing that work well with subscriptions, they are interested in getting more data and having more games that are you know, building revenue from subscriptions. And that's actually its own little department within Oculus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Something oh, go ahead, Isabel.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had just one question. Do you actually think it's a game? You presented it as a game, but it's also more maybe an experience. I mean, meditation is not really a game, so.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do call it a game, mostly because that gets a little bit better support from Oculus games than user applications. There is a game element to it. You know, you get a reward for when you meditate, and you maintain your practice that you have to meditate, you know, 7 days in a row to evolve your spirit. And if you stop meditating, it devolves. But to be perfectly honest, it's more of a experience, you know, less of a game. There's not level design. There's not really like winners and losers. You know, it's basically an experience, but we do call it a game And I think we're actually shifting to calling it more of a platform, to be honest, because we're working with different partners to build new types of meditation content within it. So it's actually becoming more of a platform, but I do call it a game. You're right. I don't know why exactly.
Okay, well, that's a very good answer. Thank you.
But you
Yeah.
do get better support from Oculus when you're.
No, that's obvious. And I have, for my own project, I was actually wondering, should I call it a game? So
You know,
yeah, I understand.
Call it a game internally, and then to everyone else, call it whatever you want. You know, the game market is the best on Oculus, and you know, gamers are looking for this stuff. But at the end of the day, everything is an experience in virtual reality. So you know, find that niche of really be able to kind of communicate what you are doing in the best way to the end user, and that's the most important thing.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, I had actually about the same question, but then I'm wondering, because I hear you and it seems very close to the concept of metaverse. I mean, what's the difference then between the platform you're saying and then like kind of a metaverse? I'm not sure.
I mean, that is so interpretive right now. The metaverse is just like the hot, you know, button item that people get invested in. So if you can throw metaverse into anything, just put it there. You know what I mean? People are Googling it. You know, you don't need to be precious about like, am I really building a metaverse? If you're building something in virtual reality, you are building something within, you know, these metaverse means. I would say a real one is like when you can actually, you know, have an economy. You know, maybe we're thinking about like, okay, if everyone has their island, you know, maybe we have a social experience down the line where you can go visit other people's islands and meet people and, you know, basically meditate together and, you know, own things that like you can meditate a reward into existence, and then everyone who meditated together, you know, has this same object that they can put on their island, and that has some sort of value, you know. So I feel like it's metaverse only because, you know, we can move into that if we want to, and that's just like a hot term, you know.
But is it something you're looking to? I mean, you're thinking about changing from an application to a game to a metaverse, or is it something you don't want to think about yet?
I think that it's just that our team doesn't have that capability quite yet, you know. Like I think we're calling it more like a platform right now, just because we can add different, you know, pieces of content to it. But I think as we're planning for the future, and as we're maybe raising money for it, and as we're discussing it with future partners, we're talking about the potential of it being a part of the metaverse, but we're not committed to that quite yet. Yeah.
Thanks, I was just wondering.
Yeah, no problem.
There's one more question from Melanie, and then unfortunately we're going to have to wrap this, but it's been a really good conversation. So let's answer that, and then we will say thank you to Tyler.
Yeah, totally. Okay, metaverse, video game, interactive experience. Isn't that the same thing in the end? Just call it how you want to call it. Absolutely. Like I say, virtual reality like is so many things. And if you're working in virtual reality, you're already at the forefront of some industry. And we're still figuring out what that industry is. It's immersive technology. It's, you know, 3D, interactive, you know, you're fully involved in it. But I would say that as you are working on projects, as you're building out your careers in virtual reality, yeah, like shake up the terms, you know, don't follow any sort of specific thing, and try and figure out what works best with you and your projects. And then, you know, you'll be shaping the industry as well, because no one knows what is going to work right now. And it is not mainstream yet. And even if you're in it all the time and feeling like it's your everything, 99% of the people out there in the world still don't understand anything about virtual reality. So you have a real opportunity to shape it and define it. So, you know, fake it till you make it. Just do whatever you think makes sense for your project, and and I think it will come to fruition.
Thank you so much for this, being able to share about your current work and your background and different projects. And you have such an interesting portfolio of projects and all showing different use cases for emerging tech. So thank you for this. I'm really excited that you came today. Two things that I think are really important that Tyler was sharing. One is talking about marketing. So saying like, call it a game to this person, and if you need to call it an art experience to that person, you know, really understanding who you're talking to from funding. You know, is it a funder who's really interested in buzzy metaverse stuff in crypto, or is it an audience member who's really looking for that next game to get hooked on? So understanding who you're talking to, and that narrative can always be true to the experience, but sometimes the way in which you're selling it is going to change. And that is an important part of distribution. And then a second piece that came up was transmedia, or creating different experiences for one overall theme or title, and having it selling in through, you know, an AR experience, then maybe an installation, then maybe the main VR piece or the main traditional game, and understanding that as part of marketing. And that's come up with several other speakers. So with that all being said, I think amazing points were made. And Tyler, if you want to hang out and say, you made great points about audio and how important audio is, which is perfect because our next speaker, Kareem.
And I know Kareem actually.
You guys know each other? Yes.
yeah.
Love
We
that.
work together. I love Kareem. He's been to the spa. So when I actually knew a bunch of the different speakers. I do unfortunately have to jump because I now have, you know, normal work stuff to do. But Kareem's amazing, and I'm excited.
Thanks, Tyler. It's good to see you.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Yeah. Nice to see you too.
Yeah, no, thank you for this, and good luck with your work day. Thank you, and for setting the tone for Thursday.
Yeah, no problem. And download Maloka, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions, if you want to work on stuff. And yeah, alrighty. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with shipping.
Thank you.
Awesome. So with that, I will pass it to Kareem. He's professional composer, audio engineer, and specifically does a lot of work with spatialized audio for mixed reality experiences, and is going to really emphasize why that is crucial. And it's something I believe and have shouted about for several years. So I'm really excited to hear his talk, and I'll let him do a deeper dive into his bio.
Well, thanks, Dara, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I have something prepared. I have some slides, and obviously I'll be talking along those. Am I able to share? Yeah, I think I can. So how does that, oh, maybe, yeah, desktop. Are you able to see my slides?
Yes.
Great.
And also to all of our participants, if it makes, you know, if this is of interest, not to put Kareem on the spot, but he's also fluent in French. If you have any questions that you prefer to ask in another language.
Oui, donc je suis francophone et j'ai préparé par contre la présentation en anglais parce qu'on me l'a demandé. Donc we can actually address any questions you have in French afterwards if you want. Great. All right. So hi everyone. I'm Kareem. I'm one of the founders of a company called Chapter 4. We're a post-production creative tech company based in New York. We offer a wide variety of different things, but we do specialize in audio. And we have been specializing in spatial and immersive interactive audio specifically over the last few years. I personally have a very strong background in music. I've been working as a composer and a sound designer for many years, mainly in the film industry, and then moved on to VR and XR over the last few years and focusing on spatial audio. And actually very recently, my company has been hired to work on a new video game called Star Atlas. And if you guys are not familiar with this game, it's being developed by Sparasoft, for those of you who are familiar with it. And it's a very interesting revolutionary concept because it's actually based on the blockchain, and it's a concept where users actually get to buy their own NFTs to play with within the game. So people can actually buy spacecrafts and armies that they can put together to go explore space. So I truly recommend you look into that because it's a really cool concept. All right, so I'm going to be spending the next 30 minutes or so covering a few points. I have a lot of stuff to talk about, so I might be going a little fast. I think it will be helpful for me to address a few things pertaining to audio in general before zooming in on some of the interactive stuff, because it just gives you a general idea of things to incorporate into your interactive projects. I'm guessing you all have the varying degrees of proficiency when it comes to working with audio, so I'm going to try to keep it as general as possible. And if you have questions, please hold on to them, and then we can circle back to them at the end of the chat. All right, so the next few slides, I'd like to talk about the typical workflow that one will most likely go through for audio in general, but also mainly for interactive projects. I guess the one thing to keep in mind is that our goal as sound engineers and sound designers and composers is to ensure that we guarantee the most appropriate audio for the project at the end. So that means both on the creative, but also on the technical side of things. I think that notion is really important to keep in mind and in the back of your head at every step of the process and the decision-making process to optimize the workflow as you go further and deeper. So in terms of quality, for example, it's important to realize that by definition, the process is going to be compressing and affecting the quality of your audio into successive digestible formats so that it keeps everything manageable and acceptable in terms of asset management because it's dictated by the workflow and the game engine that you're working with. So ideally, you need to work with the highest audio quality up until the very last point of integration, and that each step that I'm going to be describing here is basically describing a way to maximize our ability to get the highest quality audio and optimize your chances of working with the better processed finals at the end. One important goal of this talk for me today is to give you the keys and the knowledge to optimize the user experience. And because as designers, we're trying to make the immersive experience as compelling as possible. Something I always say, and I think Dara started alluding to that earlier, is that audio is generally, and I'm not biased when I say this, I think it's a pretty objective statement, that audio is typically the secret ingredient that makes your immersive experience compelling and realistic. And if your intention is really to make your audience feel like they're there and they're actually being immersed, sound is usually that extra thing that enhances your amazing visuals or user experience or all the processes that you spent a lot of time and sometimes money doing. Audio is usually a more accessible and cheaper way of actually enhancing this experience. So a high quality spatial sound mix is typically hard to achieve. It's complex. It takes a lot of things to take into consideration. And again, the point of the session is really to consider the multiple different small things that you can do to optimize the final audio representation of your piece. All right, so in a nutshell, the workflow is, as I said before, the typical one. We start with pre-production, production, post-production. I'm not going to be talking too much about distribution here, but distribution is also an important one, and it varies drastically depending on your XR experience. So first of all, let's talk about pre-production very quickly. I like to think that this step is really the step where you determine the aesthetic direction and basic user experience concept of your soundscape, what's meant to be doing as a key component of your experience. A lot of the decisions that you make at this stage will drastically affect the way you approach production, but also post-production. So I think it's really relevant to take the time in pre-production to ask yourself questions about a few things, like, for example, the degree of realism that you want to achieve in your piece. Do you want your piece to be experienced as a realistic, transparent experience, or rather maybe hyper-realistic? That means that you're going to start thinking about the sonic language and identity that you want your piece to be exploring. And more often than not, you need to think about the coherence of your sounds. Do you want your experience to feel like it's happening in real life, or do you want to give it like an additional layer of hyper realism, maybe by reinforcing certain sounds that don't occur in reality, or potentially steer away from realism, but rather focus on recreating virtual environments from scratch using synthesized and completely designed sounds? So on that, if that's the intention, that means that you will have to rely a lot on working with things that are not organic, and rather design and synthesize things, and you have to strategize ahead of time by thinking ahead. Maybe there are a few things that you need to record yourself, the sounds that you will actually have to incorporate as is, but also potentially with the intention to manipulate those and process them, or maybe dedicate time and resources and your budget to working with sound designers who will be creating things entirely from scratch in the box virtually. One major question that I like to mention, which probably needs to be figured out early on, is whether you need to record live sound pertaining to the specific locations involved in your pieces. That's something that people typically learn the hard way when they're much further in the process. So I had this great experience a few months ago, last year, to talk at a Microsoft hackathon for developers, and that experience, or that program was actually focused on sports experiences. And one thing that I told the developers is that, you know, if you're actually trying to recreate something authentic, one thing comes to mind. For example, like, I'm a huge soccer fan. I don't know, for those of you, Olympique de Marseille, and I've went to the Velodrome, and I love this experience. I like want something very specific and very iconic is like chants, for example. So this is like where you actually have to think about what will actually make your experience so transparent and authentic, and those things can actually happen, you know, through capturing native sounds to the locations. All right, moving on. Am I going too fast? I don't get any reaction. Okay, all
It's
good.
great. It's great.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so about user experience, it's important to think about that ahead of time, and I think it's important to give yourself the time and the space to think about the role and the function of audio at that very level too. So the degree of interactivity, for example, that you want your experience to achieve is really important to think about ahead of time. Will it mostly be something static, involving a stereo feed, or maybe a 360 static canvas? Or would you rather involve your audience in a more interactive way through a completely like object-based soundscape, for instance? So if the latter, then you think you need to potentially think about your development stage accordingly by addressing the structures in your game engine and in the way you're actually envisioning the user experience at the very game engine level. The different environments, all the objects that you have to incorporate in your project as well, so that you can tell the story accurately and not have to go back eventually when you leave that stage in the workflow. So think about those things ahead of time before starting the build, in my opinion, because you often will find yourself limited by the actual architecture of your work at the game engine level. And audio should never be an afterthought. And the most compelling experience that I've had the pleasure to experience, like through the community, with like in the work with Tyler, for example, and other people, are experiences that have audio as an integral part. And those decisions are usually made hand in hand as you go, and not after the fact. So maybe ask yourself specific questions about the storytelling approach that maybe rely entirely on audio. And if so, how am I going to address this in the way I design the actual experience itself? Does it affect the user experience at all? Does it actually make approaching certain aspects on the visual side and the structure differently? So to give you an example, we've been designing this interactive piece for some time now called Strata of Memory. And the idea is for us to dive into the memory of our main character. And the way we've actually designed this is to involve two different timelines. One is going, they're going side by side. So one is going forward in time, and it's told by the visuals. And the other one is actually told by the audio, but going backwards in time. At one point, they actually meet halfway at a very specific, important point in the psyche of the character. So in our concept, this kind of basically forces us to think about audio as a major central element in the actual storytelling apparatus, versus trying to accommodate for audio after the fact by just manipulating the architecture and the visual aspects of things. All right, so I don't want to spend too much time I would spend a whole hour talking about this stuff, but I guess this is, I just want to touch upon a few things here based on the science of it, so that the technical production and post-production concepts make more sense. But in a nutshell, there are basically two sets of information that help our brain determine where sounds are coming from. Those are the binaural cues on one end and the spectral cues on the other. So binaural cues are basically consist of, on one hand, the interoral time difference, which is the difference in the time of arrival of a sound to our ear, and the interoral intensity difference, which is the difference in intensity of a sound that reaches the difference between the two ears. And on the other hand, you have spectral cues that involve the shape of our ear, the concha, the pinna, and HRTFs. HRTF is a really very important concept that comes in handy when in the context of XR and gaming especially, because it stands for the head-related transfer function, and it represents the response, the acoustic response, in which a human ear perceives sound from any given point in space, and that is typically affected by the shape of the head, the torso, signature elements that are only unique to each person, based on the density of your bones and things like that. So each ear has its own very specific HRTF, because we're all different, but we're all the same. Kumbaya, all the stuff. So this is briefly what I wanted to talk about. If you have more questions about the technical aspect of things, please don't hesitate to ask me questions at the end. But I want to jump into the production aspect of things. And I don't want to spend too much time on this either, because it can get very technical. But I really want to quickly mention that you have many different kinds of microphones out there, and they're mainly categorized into 3 different technologies. You have the dynamic microphones, you have the condenser microphones, and then you have the ribbon microphones. And they're all slightly different in the way they capture and transform acoustic and mechanical energy into electromagnetic signal. One important thing to know is that condenser microphones are the only ones that actually require power to be functional to work, and this power is called phantom power. Maybe it's something that you've actually come across before. Regardless of how the microphone is built and the actual technology of it, each microphone is designed basically in a way to pick up sound in a very specific directional way, and this is called the polar pattern. And it's basically, you can think about this as being the shape of the microphone's capture ability, if you will. And there are a wide number of different polar patterns, but the most common ones are omnidirectional, cardioid, and figure of 8. And the way to create more patterns is basically by adding and subtracting those microphone polar patterns together, as it shows here. And this information will come in handy when I talk about ambisonics in a little bit. But before that, I want to quickly talk about stereo recording and stereo pairs. So all these that I mentioned before are single channels, meaning that they're actually mono microphones. The difference with a stereo pair is that it's actually using multiple mono channels put together to create a stereo 2-channel pair. Some involve coincidence, meaning that they are using 2 microphone capsules and placed right next to each other, and some other are called near coincident, meaning that they're actually using capsules that are separated by a certain distance. And then you have a whole different category called binaural microphones that are basically mics meant to be capturing sound by mimicking how our ears as human beings detect audio. And this typically involves including the concept of the HRTF that I talked about before. The recording format and the actual format that you end up with for all these microphone techniques are basically stereo. So we're talking about a 2-channel audio file at the end. So those are funny little wacky microphone options that you have there. The Neumann KU 100 is typically called Fritz. It's it's a great microphone, and if you have access to that, I strongly recommend. It's very expensive, but it's also one of the best out there. You have also cheaper options that are basically things that you can place in your own ears. But one thing to keep in mind, as I said before, these are actually stereo formats and fixed perspectives, which are not exactly what are typically found in an interactive setting, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. I just briefly, I don't want to spend too much time here, but the way you have single microphones, single mono microphones for one channels, you have ways of combining multiple channels to create multi-microphone techniques and multi speaker arrays. 5.1, 7.1 are common ones with different speaker configurations. All right. So this brings me to the infamous ambisonics technology. That's been around for almost 40, 50 years now. It's actually crazy to think that it's actually been designed in the 70s. And this is something that I strongly recommend looking into because it's accessible. It's nowadays pretty cheap to get an ambisonic microphone, and it can actually drastically improve your soundscapes in your designs and your experiences. So ambisonics is basically a full sphere sound field format, and it's completely channel independent, unlike the previous formats that I was talking about. It comes in different resolutions that are called orders. So the lower the order, the more basic the resolution, and the higher the order, the higher the number of channels and the resolution. The first order ambisonics consists of 4 discrete channels, but it doesn't mean that it's meant to be played over 4 discrete playback channels. It means that it consists of 4 coincidental microphone capsules, like I mentioned before, and that the signal captured by each one is meant to be summed together in a very complex signal processing math algorithmic thing to generate a full sphere when you decode this to the B format, which is the typical decoded side of the equation. The recording format is called the A format, and the encoded format is the B format. And then the beauty of ambisonics is that it actually, once it's in the B format, you can actually decode this to any configuration you want. In the context of this talk and in the work that you do, it's typically decoded to a binaural signal over headphones, because this is how most experiences are experienced. That's what I was talking about. As I said, you can go higher in order, and the higher you go in ambisonics, the more capsules you have. It's theoretically impossible to create a sound field with using coincidental single microphone capsules that are physically not possible to fit in the real estate. So when it comes to higher order, what typically happens is that you still spread those different capsules with a given distance, and then you make up for that distance by using complex math and use the sophisticated digital signal processing to come up with that whole sphere with higher resolution. These are examples of first order ambisonics. Again, those are relatively easy to access commercially, and happy to answer any questions you have about those at the end. If you're using an ambisonic microphone, you will need to be able to record multi-track, and those are at least 4 if you're using a first order ambisonic mic, and those are typical multi-track recorders that you can find also on the market. And those are examples of high order ambisonics. You can see that those have multiple capsules, much more than the other ones. And those are typically much more expensive, especially the Egan mic on the right. That's like, I don't know, like a few $100,000 for it. All right, so if you're out there and recording ambisonics, you're certainly probably also thinking about capturing fixed point sources, because the problem with ambisonic, it's not a problem, but like one of the limitations of ambisonic is that you're actually truly capturing one fixed perspective. It's a 360 environment, but it's still fixed from the position of the microphone and the camera. So one thing to complement those types of recordings is actually going and actually capturing isolated point sources native to the scene or the location that you're recording, and that typically happens with mono signals like the microphones that I mentioned before, using lavalier for speakers or boom microphones for specific sound effects that you want to include. Very briefly, this is a case study where we did exactly that. We were involved on this really cool project by Ben Schwartz. It was a 6-off experience set in the subway of New York City. And then that's me, very happy. It's 6 in the morning, recording sound, sound ambiances in the subway of New York, using an ambisonic microphone. But then we also managed to capture specific sound point sources like the subway or like the speaker and things like that that we incorporated in post-production. And I'm going to be talking about post right now.
Was this for Blackout?
That's for Underture.
Underture. I like that name.
Underture, yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the logo as well that they came up with. It's very New York.
Oh yeah.
All right, and that brings me to my last section. How am I doing on time there? Can't hear you. All right, just power.
We have until 10:20, so I would say again, if any of our participants, like if you do have questions and want to jump in about this stuff, you can keep going, Kareem, too. But knowing we have 12 minutes, we can kind of blend Q&A with continued talk.
All right, I maybe give me like 3 minutes to power through all this stuff that I have for the post-production, because that actually can come in really handy for the project that they're working on. I'm going to actually just scan through this really quickly. So this is, again, like a typical workflow for post-production. It's very similar to a traditional one, but then you actually end up at the implementation part, which is a whole different beast when it comes to interactive pieces. What we typically do is that we work, we do some linear work in typical, traditional digital audio workstations like Pro Tools before incorporating in the game engine. Some people are more comfortable using Reaper or Nuendo. 2 things that I learned from my very short experience and career as a sound engineer is that your 2 best friends are EQ and compression. The EQ is basically an equalizer. That means that you can actually affect the amplitude and the representation of certain frequency ranges in your sound, whereas compression is basically how the dynamics of your sound and how it's actually behaving in time. In time, basically. The other point that I also wanted to briefly talk about is space, and using delay and reverb can also drastically affect the identity of your sound. It's different than the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, acoustics. So even like delay and reverb can drastically change the actual way you perceive a sound source in itself. All right, so implementation in game engine. There are a number of different spatialization plugins out there that you can use in your game engine to place point sources virtually. Those are, some of the ones that you can find commercially. There's also another way you can deal with implementation. It's working with a middleware like Wise or Fmod, and I'm happy to answer any questions. We've been working a lot with Wise, but sometimes you can also work in the game engine itself, whether you're working with Unreal or Unity. Unreal has come up with some really cool features lately called meta sounds, where you can actually process audio very powerfully in the game engine itself. All right. One fundamental question is determining what needs to be spatialized versus headlocked. So, certain UI sounds will typically be headlocked versus spatialized. For example, the voice of God effect. We had this very cool project where we had to make a hybrid configuration where some of the sounds were actually placed in your head and some were actually placed outside. The other very important parameter is distance-based attenuation. And this is basically mimicking how sounds work in the physical world. Like, the closer you get to a sound, the louder it is, and the further away you get, the lower it gets. And this is actually something very important, because when it's poorly executed, distance attenuation can truly get you out of the experience and actually even confuse your audience. So I really recommend paying a lot of attention to that. And then lastly, I know I'm like powering through all this stuff, but lastly is acoustics, which includes concepts like occlusion, obstruction, reverb, early reflection, and source modeling. Occlusion is basically the situation where you actually have a surface between you, the source, and the listener, whether it's a wall or a specific geometric figure. Obstruction is when the sound actually goes around a certain figure. So this is actually all stuff that you can do with powerful tools in the game engine or using middleware like Wise or Fmod. And the two diagram here show that those two concepts. And then space, for wrapping up this whole thing, you can see in this graph there are actually different types of reflections. They have the early reflections that are actually happen right after the direct sound, which are related to the nature of the object itself, the sound itself. And then you have the layer reverb reflections that are typically more related to the geometry of the space and not the sound itself. And those are two very important things that you can play around with. I have a bunch of other things that I can talk about, but I'm just going to wrap it up for now. If you have any more questions, please let me know.
I think you did an amazing job, and specifically diving into a lot of the technical aspects that come with your job, because I feel like people do not understand audio unless they work in audio. And in the chat, I asked while you were speaking how many people have worked with either audio engineers or composers or, you know, people working within that world, in your world. And it seems like there's a fair amount, because everyone here is a professional working in media, so they've worked on it for different projects. Something I think would be really beneficial right off the bat to discuss would be, how would you encourage someone developing a project focused very on the visual end to start thinking about audio as soon as possible? When do you start thinking about, I guess maybe not you, because it's on the brain all the time, but when would you encourage a collaborator who's directing a project to start thinking about how to incorporate audio?
The short answer is as early as possible. As I was describing before, I think the pre-production stage is something that is very often overlooked, and it truly dictates a lot of things that happen downstream. So just take the time to think about, of course, you're probably driven by the experience itself, not considering audio as a key component, and you think about this as a general concept, but then take the time to incorporate this and see how audio can actually either feed the vision or maybe affect the way you consider other things not audio related, like, some of the visuals. Sometimes you don't have to rely on visuals, only, and audio can help you alleviate some of that very heavy lifting. Just to give you an example, like, visual cues are sometimes very cumbersome or very taxing in terms of user experience, and you can do this on a very superficial level just using audio by attracting people's attention, or maybe providing a layer of information that you don't have necessarily to do in the game or in the user experience itself, or using visuals. So yeah, think about this as early as possible, and as I said, this will certainly dictate a lot of things downstream in terms of the way you navigate the experience itself.
As a follow-up question, do you have any tools and or programs you'd recommend that could effectively do audio mood boarding? I never have thought about that before because I'm so visual.
Yeah.
The idea that you could collect audio clips or audio tones, because for this group of people, everyone is very strong visually.
Right. I can imagine.
So thinking, not to say that I'm not sure people in here are also musicians or also have done their own audio soundscapes or engineering, because I would not be shocked if that was a skill set that many of you possessed. But thinking about trying to world build with soundscapes as soon as possible.
I don't know of an actual interface that helps you do that, but then obviously doing this in a more organic way by collecting references. I do this all the time in my work, whether it's on the audio side or music, especially. I always ask collaborators to come up with playlists of things that are inspiring. So even for you, and immersing yourself in the soundscapes that you want to to confer your experience as an identity is probably very important, very helpful. SoundCloud is, you know, a simple way of doing and creating playlists. But honestly, just by, you know, creating playlists that you can just keep listening to and immersing yourself in. I don't unfortunately have specific ways unless you actually work in you know, you have access to Logic or Pro Tools or whatnot. You can create those things by creating simple mockups in a linear 2D aspect, and that can also help make early decisions in the process.
And there are also, just to add on that, a few free libraries on the internet where you can find some, you know, some science for sound design, like Free Sound or
exactly. Yeah, that's a great
really
point.
Helpful to build. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
I can share those in the chat, but there's freesound.org. The one I wanted to recommend too that I think is a great resource is the Unity Asset Store, and they have, you know, a few available free packages, you know, of music and sound design packs, you know, that people can, you know, organize in terms of like themes and stuff like that people can download and start at least you know, creating mockups. So yeah, thanks for that. Antoine? Yeah, okay. Learning to, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm more familiar with movies, sound design.
Yeah.
And is there specificities in game design and XR design? Something to know when you are a game designer, how to speak to your sound designer, what to think about?
I want to say yes and no. I mean, no, because it's at the end of the day, you're recreating a soundscape. So there's a lot of, you know, similar processes. However, the major difference is that you have to think about everything in an interactive way. So nothing is linear anymore. So you're not attaching a sequence stuck in time based just like a reference, but you have to think about all the different possibilities. So that very point is the most important thing to like switch in your mind, is that you're not fixing anything in time, but you're actually attaching a sound to a potential moving object, and that drastically changes the way you look at things from an arranging perspective, at least on the music and sound design aspect. Things like, for example, baking in like space can actually be completely different in a game situation or an interactive situation, because an object will behave differently depending on your position in relation to the object and how this object behaves in the space itself. So yeah, those are things to consider, I guess. And that was the hardest thing for me, to switch from traditional
I've seen it.
You know, film workflows to the interactive ones.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Maybe it's a bit the weird question, but I was wondering if when you work on a video game, for example, do you prefer when the game director or the author is very directive and have strong intentions, or do you prefer to have some freedom as in the sound making? I mean, is it like, I don't know if it's clear, but do you feel like you have some authorship too, and you like to have some freedom?
That's a great question. I think it's like it's beyond audio. I think it's like a philosophical question based on like how we are artists and how we approach our work as, you know, collaborators. I think I'm going to come up with this, you know, philosophical answer, I guess, but it really depends on the project. And from experience, I find freedom in constraints. I don't know if that makes any sense. I love finding creativity when I'm actually imposed certain sets of rules. So the most creative I've been, it's a kind of a paradox, was actually situations where I was given a very concrete creative direction, and then within that I had to come up with things that I find I can relate to, because it's like still I'm full to while still serving the vision of the creator that I'm working with. So and then you also have, I've had those, you know, the very this like luxury of working with people and being involved very early on, where they just give you carte blanche and you can do whatever you want. And that's also very challenging because you have the responsibility of coming up with the creative vision. So, you know, it truly depends. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering if you prefer one like, do you prefer to have carte blanche, or if you prefer to have constraints? But I guess you can have both. It depends.
Yeah. And it depends on who you work with. Like sometimes you just prefer working with people who know how to describe certain things, and then you always rely on the vision, because our goal and our, you know, if we're working as collaborators and you're actually commissioned and hired to be joining someone else's vision, your role is to serve the vision, and you're not actually there to, like, you know, take the spotlight and shine. So it's it's always been a challenging exercise to be finding your own voice and identity, and also serving the projects.
As a really great and I think pretty well-known example, does anyone know the show Cowboy Bebop?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's an animation, it's anime, but the really cool thing about Cowboy Bebop, and I only got into it like maybe a year or two ago, I read the background story on it, and the creator of it, whose name I'm forgetting, he worked directly with a jazz composer who created the whole soundtrack. And he did not write the story and animate and then involve the composer. They informed each other. So he would sometimes write a plot line or start working on the animation, and then she would come in and go, I'm really inspired, and start writing for that. But other times she already had a song and he would write a plot line around being inspired by the song. And I think that's a really cool way to work with someone with audio, because so often, to Kareem's point, and I'm sure it's been the same for most of us working with audio composers or engineers, they really do get involved at the very last minute and have very little time to do their job. So I think it's really neat to rethink, especially as a visual creator myself, to rethink how audio and music lives within the world that I'm building by directly involving whomever is the composer from far earlier on, or whoever's designing.
Absolutely.
Something else, and I know Jean has a question too, but a point I wanted to make very quickly. Yesterday, Lauren Kaysen came in and did that talk about Meow Wolf, and she had talked about world building with random, not random, but like actually very purposeful, but seemingly random placed objects or assets in AR. And I think that's completely relevant for video games, but you can do the same thing with audio design. So you don't necessarily have to go build out a visual, or if you're creating a visual world, what ways in which can audio inform all the details of that world around you, even if you're not necessarily following through with engaging with that component of the soundscape. Does that all make sense? Think about the crash compactor.
Well, if you mean, and I don't know, this is your point, but and I tried to make that point before. It also, in terms of practicality, it's easier in terms of resources to do things using audio than it is to. It's easier to create a massive, explosion using audio than it is like using actual visuals. So there's so many things that you can offload onto audio to make something more compelling and realistic. And you should definitely rely on, on that aspect as well. I'm not sure if that was your point.
It was partially that. And then there was a literal example from yesterday for one of the speakers where she had designed a trash portal, quote unquote, at Meow Wolf. And it did nothing except just exist to try to give a stronger sense of the world that you're in.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Just emphasizing the point that the audio examples you're giving are this random, part of the world she designed, but it helps to build the story that there's many other things.
Yeah, the story and the identity, and there's so much that you can do in terms of conferring this identity with audio, sonic branding, and all this stuff. I mean, that's for sure definitely true.
Thank you. And also, going quickly back to Jean, I didn't want to forget your question. Did you want to share about that?
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have three questions. You mentioned some game before. and
Yep.
I don't hear it. Maybe StarCraft, I don't know.
It's Star Atlas. I'm just
Star
gonna type in.
Atlas, okay, thanks. And
Sorry, I sent that to there only. Sorry.
Thank you very much. And I'm asking why you don't use Ableton Live, or maybe you use it on post-prod or production, but you don't mention it. I don't know why.
I don't use, when it comes to music, I use Logic. I'm trained in Logic and I've been using Logic for like 15 years. Ableton is great for a lot of things. A lot of people I know, professional composers, use Ableton to write music. It's just not something I've learned how to work in.
Okay.
Ableton is also great for certain types of arrangements in electronic music when it's actually loop heavy. So that for that in live performance, Ableton is great. It's just also not the the industry standard for post-production in general, and Pro Tools is. Now Reaper is kind of becoming a little more accessible because it's free and it has a lot of features. But yeah, Pro Tools and Logic for me. It doesn't mean that you can't work in Ableton.
Okay, thanks.
I think Reaper actually. I'm sorry.
No, go.
Just to add on that for Reaper, because we had the similar experience. We were working both on Pro Tools and Ableton, and for past projects, and we ended up working on Reaper because we could actually code inside the program.
Exactly.
Some interactions with the light in the room, inside the headsets, and everything. So Reaper is an amazing soft.
It's very advanced though, so I don't recommend it for people who don't have experience, but you're totally right, and it gives you that ability to code and be flexible, and it's also historically the most experimental one, where people would actually have unlimited channels that they can route the way they want. Now Pro Tools is kind of catching up by creating those channels built in, but historically, totally, yeah, I agree. Reaper has always been the go-to for experimental designers.
And it's free also.
And it's free.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Isn't it $60 now?
I mean, it's $60, right? It's $60. Yeah. But you can try it for free, and you can pay or not pay. You can actually decide.
Oh, so, is it like a donation?
Anyway,
okay.
Yeah.
So you had one last question. I know we're running.
One last question. Perfect. Thanks. Thank you very much, Antoine. What was the name of the tools to make sound design on Unreal Engine?
It's called Meta Sounds, I think.
Thank you very much.
Unreal. And then what I also recommend for those of you who are curious and want to look into that, which I find I'm not sponsored, I'm not paid by them at all, but it's called Wise by Audio Kinetic. And this is like an amazing piece of software that helps you do a lot of crazy things. So look into that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I spoke way too fast.
You're doing great.
Great.
Also, as a reminder to everyone, all of these sessions are being recorded, not to be posted publicly.
Okay.
You're like, oh no, you knew, Kareem.
I heard it as soon as I was like, this is re-recorded. Yeah.
No, none of them are getting posted publicly. So again, please don't,
Oh, it's totally fine.
They're not supposed to go, up on YouTube or something. But because there is a lot of valuable information, feel free to reach out to any of the participants. And Kareem, if you feel like it about other people's talks or your own, you can always request a recording in case you want to listen.
Love to, yeah. Later. I missed Tyler's because I was preparing for this, so I'd love to go back and listen to what Tyler was talking about. I shared my email address if you want to reach out.
Thank you for that.
And are you, so I know this is like, and I'm overlapping or it's like break time, but is the idea for people to travel to New York at some point?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so maybe we'll get to meet each other.
Yeah, so Kareem is one of the speakers and one of the people that I thought would be really valuable for you all to meet with in person, and to see that you all have so many questions about his work. It would be really great either if we brought him in or we'll meet somewhere that's relevant. But yes, Kareem, and then also his business partner over at Chapter 4. And they're just
who's also French. I only hang out with French. No, that's not true.
Well, I feel very honored. Thank you.
She's the only non-French person that I know.
Thank you.
But no, looking forward to meeting all of you, and hopefully, you know, we can chat about all this stuff.
Yeah. And also something to consider for our participants too. We talked about this on Monday, but if there's certain needs, like we've talked a lot about storytelling, but if you also want to really have some more like kind of a deeper conversation with Kareem, we can try to set up times that you can talk about your project's needs with him, if that feels relevant. And then, of course, as just a heads up to all of you, as you end the program at the end of February and go back to France or wherever you may be, you can, of course, reach out to any of these individuals to potentially work on your projects and in production in the future, especially because someone like Kareem has a specialty in spatialized audio if it's relevant to XR or to a gaming piece, whatever it is. So if you do wind up just looking ahead a few months, if you come to New York with specific needs that you would want someone to help solve, we can tap all those different people. Just tell me in advance.
That would be with great pleasure.
Yeah. I know that we are over time for the talk, but right now we have a break scheduled, so we can keep chatting with Kareem if he's available, or we can go on a break. How is everyone feeling?
Are you sick of me yet?
Never sick of you.
No need a break for me.
No, it's good.
All right.
Oh,
If
okay.
anyone does need to take a break, it is scheduled, so you can go, but we can also stay in this session. And then Kareem, I forget if you actually met him or not, but Marco is the next talk.
Yeah, I know Marco. Yeah.
Because I know we talked about Marco, and I just forgot if you knew him.
I know him through you, actually. We before
Oh.
like, you know, when in a previous life before the pandemic,
Mhm.
whenever he visited, we went out to
Good.
and then we went to a few parties together, I think. With
Okay,
you.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Marco is
awesome.
next. Great.
So if you can hang out, but if
I'll try to stick around. I have to go in like 20-ish minutes,
fine.
but yeah, I can stick around for sure.
Yeah, it's totally up to you. I think he would love seeing another friendly face.
For sure.
Our next talk, as you all know from the schedule, but he is a wonderful friend of mine, and he is one of the leading investors in mixed reality in the United States. And he's invested in all of the top games that have been successful here and abroad. And he runs a venture capital firm. And he's going to speak a little bit about investing and what the market specifically for XR and gaming looks like. He also ran a game studio in Belgium for several years. He is originally from Turkey, and so he has a very interesting global perspective on what it means to work in the US, work in Europe, work in the Middle East, and also in Asia. He works a lot with Asian, specifically Chinese investors. So it'll be an interesting perspective from him, because his whole job is looking at what success is going to be at mass market scale. So just something to think about as all independent creators.
He was super helpful with, I approached him for a few ideas that I was trying to get off the ground for, you know, startups. And you remember we talked about that as well there. And he was like super helpful with very valuable considerations early on to think about when you're trying to rally people around your project and raise capital, and, you know, and even like the whole, you know, step-by-step process involving angel investors and like family and friends and stuff like that. So it was great. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to be talking all about that.
Yeah. So if there are any questions about funding stuff, I think definitely relevant.
I have a question, if it's possible. Kareem, in US, you are working independently, or you are working for a studio, for a company? You made a company, and how it's work to be a designer, sound designer in US? It's the same in France or something different?
Well, okay, so I created my own company about 6 years ago. So I'm basically sponsored by my company. I have an artist visa. I mean, I've been in this country for 16 years, so by now I should have a different status. But it's been, you know, it's been hell. I'm also Lebanese, so it kind of complicated the whole process when I first moved to the US, because I left during the war. I used to live in Beirut, and they made that transition complicated. But then, you know, even with that choice, after spending 16 years in the US, you should be able to have a green card. But, you know, I'm kind of working on it, I guess. And then in terms of practicing, it's one thing to keep in mind in the US, it's dramatically different. Is like you don't have any public aids, like you don't have any of that. So you mainly rely on private initiatives, foundations. Sundance has been amazing, and like obviously like the digital programs as a program is really geared towards helping communities, and also in partnership with some public structures. But then here it's mainly you're on your own, and hence why I chose to create my own company, because that was my structure, my infrastructure that I thought was like the best way to do that. And then I still try to find time to do music as a musician, as an artist on my own, for my own sake, but I just don't have the time to do that anymore. So
sad. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
but hopefully one day, there are ways for, as French citizens, to still be based in the US and enjoy some of the resources and the infrastructure that are made for, through the embassy services. I'm assuming, Camille might be a good person to ask about this as well. I know Camille is kind of around, but she said she was sick. I'm sorry to hear.
She's sleeping.
Okay.
Oh, I'm there, sorry.
Okay.
Hi,
So,
Karim.
hi, Camille. So I'm
Tell me
assuming
again.
those, yeah. Okay, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't listen to the questions.
No, it's not a question. I'm assuming that there are ways for French citizens who choose to move to the US to still be able to work with, public assistance in one way or another through the embassy, or I'm assuming like that's also part of those initiatives. I might be completely wrong, because I unfortunately haven't been using my French citizenship as much.
Yeah, of course, but I'm gonna tease a bit, but it will be for February, this
all right. So
part of the game. Yeah.
To answer on that, Karim, so Camille actually will be joining the embassy in a few months, but has not yet started. So if anyone does have questions about what resources might exist, I can ask Valerie, who's the one that is over the program, because it's a great question. If you're living in the US or abroad as a French person or part of the EU, what resources might exist to still benefit you? That's fantastic. I also think, as it's been emphasized many times, if you can still tap into European funding, that's the way to go. So
sure. Yeah.
Here's that. So Marco just joined us. Hello. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us at the early hour. Marco is on the West Coast, unless you're somewhere else in the world. I never know where you are. Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, in the Bay Area.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you for being up very early. We just finished a talk with Karim, and we can jump right into yours. I have your presentation up.
Hi, Marco.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you? I'm going to stick around to try to, catch your talk as well.
Okay, thank you. I hope you're not bored.
I highly doubt that.
I'm seeing how I have Keynote up, and I almost never use Keynote, so give me 1 second.
So Dara, who do we have on the
Sure, we can take a second to go through introductions for each of our participants. Does everyone want to go around very quickly and say a quick hello? I'm seeing Jean at the top of my screen, so you're going to go first.
Yeah, I go first. So I'm Jean. I'm the game designer of the project Micro Mega with Mani, and I'm glad to be here and to hear you. Maybe Antoine?
Yeah, hi. So my name is Antoine, and I'm mainly a filmmaker, and I'm here to develop a project which is more like an AR location-based, pretty experimental, like contemporary art style of thing, experience, like long experience for 40 minutes for like 10 or 15 people.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Should I go? Oh. I'm Léa Ducré. I'm a narrative designer, and I work on the project the Cherry Tree Paradigm with Benjamin Auguet, and which is an anti-management game.
Good to meet you.
Hi, I'm Mani. I'm a visual artist, and I will be the game, not exactly the game designer, but I will make a game around my visual universe, and I work with Jen, as you see. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Joy. I'm a visual artist too, and I create a visual novel, an interactive game called Bluebird. This is an adaptation from Charles Perrault's tale called Bluebird.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Isabelle, and I'm the author of an animated interactive film called Nanaloo. So it's a VR experience.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you. I'm Melanie, and I'm working here on a VR video game about psychological horror and guilt.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for everyone going around. I think we got everyone. If Cami, you wanted to say a quick hello. Cami's my producing partner.
Hello, Marco.
Salut.
She's feeling a little under the weather, so we're trying not to engage her too much.
All right.
Great. Can everyone see Marco's presentation?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Just let me know if there's any delay or anything like that. And Marco, you just tell me when to click through slides.
Okay. Should I go?
Yep.
Bonjour, bonsoir. Je suis très heureux d'être ici et de parler de l'avenir d'Internet et de son interaction avec le jeu. Je suis fondateur d'un fonds de capital risque, de Venture Reality Fund ou de VR Fund. Nous investissons de la metaverse. Mais je ne pense pas que je continue en français. J'espère que vous m'excusez. Delighted to be here. Sorry, I couldn't continue. It's technical and I get tripped up. So I'm excited to talk about metaverse and what that really means. And so let me sort of go through some slides and how that really interacts with the gaming. And I'll talk about sort of some of the, really sort of dynamic trends going on between metaverse and some sectors. And so next one. So I'll talk about three things are fun in a quick overview. It's really not about us, it's a little more about metaverse and gaming, which is a topic of interest to you. And let's give you some examples. So our fund next. We started the fund in 2016. We both are coming from the gaming background. We worked at the game company I was running. If you ever played Diner Dash or Cooking Dash, that was our franchise title, downloaded over 600 million times at that time, and 85% sort of female audience globally. And Tipitat got really excited about Oculus DK1 when it first came out and started the first AR VR incubator in San Francisco. And then after selling the company, I was doing investments in content, media, entertainment in the TPG Capital, and he convinced me that I should leave all that and start our fund. So next, our passion has always been about what metaverse is all about. Well, some of the images are too small, but anyway, sorry. So we started the journey. We said there will be a transformation of consumer enterprise businesses because of what we call this future of computing to be defined by AR, VR, and AI. That was our beginning thesis in 2016. And you know, fast forward, now you're seeing VR is becoming mainstream. You know, in addition to Oculus, now you're going to have Pico, ByteDance headsets coming up to compete with them. And there are a lot of new devices coming out for both AR glasses or mixed reality glasses or just pure VR HMDs. But our investment thesis, future of computing, to sort of alter the landscape for consumer enterprise businesses, has sort of taken off in the last 2 years. As horrific as the pandemic has been, it's been overall, at least from sort of a US market perspective, it's been an accelerator. And along the way, this feature of the internet discussion started happening. And you know, there are a lot of attempts to talk about what metaverse is. From our perspective, metaverse is really the evolution of the internet. It's becoming more autonomous, more decentralized, more open, and it really combines virtual and digital agencies, and you can express it in 2D or 3D. It doesn't have to have a headset. It could be in a browser on your phone, but for us, it's really evolution of the internet. And then, you know, if you sort of look all the metaverse discussions right now, we think eventually everything will sort of fall under this metaverse umbrella, what we call future of computing, and you know, the future of the internet sort of become metaverse. That's our general belief. And it's a huge market opportunity. Honestly, every day there's new forecast coming up from Morgan Stanley and others talking about, is it an $8 trillion opportunity? Is it a, you know, 5 trillion or 10 trillion? But it's a huge transition and inflection point for compute environments, as well as you know, social, you know, interactions and gaming and enterprise and so forth. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But what you're seeing is like similar to what happened to the internet in the 90s, and you know, mobile in the 2010 and after, and then you know, crypto economies in sort of mid 2010 to 2015 and after. So let's talk about that in the next slide. This is what we've been doing in the last 5 years, basically. We've been building under the metaverse umbrella or the future of computing umbrella. So a number of companies, I'm not going to go into detail. Some of them you might know. If you bought Justin Bieber about 10 days ago, he was performing on Wave. That's a live virtual concert platform, and artists come and, you know, sort of really perform live, but as avatars. It's getting huge attention. We'll talk about that and talk about what that means for metaverse. Rec Room is sort of like the next generation Roblox, and Digital Village is actually a Paris-based sustainable metaverse. And so anyway, we're global investors, and I'll sort of give you some highlights of relevant companies in our to our discussion. Next. So what's metaverse? There are a lot of people trying to define what metaverse is. So next, please. So I really don't like to define metaverse. There's too much energy spent on it, versus let's just sort of define or describe what we'll do within metaverse, and or what it'll really bring to us. So from our fund perspective, we look at 3 components. We can play, we can live, we can work. And what are the sort of technical components? We obviously have some blockchain, decentralized economies, and AI and AR, VR under XR, and then 5G networks. But for us, the most important part, for some reason, the image is not coming, but there's a text there says, you know, we really care more about what metaverse should be. We should be better than Internet 2.0. We should be open, ethical, accessible, and it really honors our privacy and agency. Next. So we talked, you know, we said play, live, and work. Actually, I'm going to skip to the next slide and give you a little bit more details on that. So given the audience, let's talk about the play part. Play part is really starts with gaming. In general, when there's a sort of compute environment transition from PCs to mobiles, now mobile to perhaps AR, VR devices and glasses, gaming sector sort of tends to be the first one. And because a lot of creators, want to experiment in this new medium, whatever the new medium is. That's what we've seen with VR in, say, 2016, 17, 18. And now, you're all sort of been experimenting and storytelling in this new medium. And now it's extending to the whole sort of global gaming industry. It's one of the largest industries, by the way. People don't really think about gaming. Is it really an important thing? It's much larger than, global music industry, much larger than global film industry and sports and everything. It's enormous, about 180 billion a year and growing 10 to 15% a year. It's going to actually probably accelerate, because when you look at the composition of people, Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, about 80 to 90% close to play games, and what they do is, depending upon the age group and gender, they're on Roblox, they're on Fortnite. Fortnite has over 300 million registered users. Roblox has close to now 50 million daily active users, and Roblox is 50-50 between male and female. And Roblox has 50% of the population less than 12 and younger, and then about 50% 13 to 24 type of clustering. But incredible amount of time spent on these platforms. Average gamer plays almost like one waking day, 8 hours a day to play games. Not 8 hours, but 8 hours a week. And so it's a significant time if you look at some of the distribution. By the way, you're welcome to have this deck after my presentation. Gaming really becomes one of our primary social interaction modes, because not only you play games, but you interact with other people. So that's sort of under play for metaverse. We look at gaming as the first big market that is taken off. Next. So what is Live then? Live is really socializing in digital space. These are our avatars, and right now we're on Snap, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, others. What you're seeing is almost half the population are on social networks, right? You have about 3.2 billion people on social networks, and Snap, by the way, has the largest augmented reality audience. Any given day, over 200 million people do something with Snap AR, either face emojis or other things. So Snap is a very robust, sort of social platform for sort of emerging technologies, especially for AR. As spectacles has been evolving with the new form factor, and the creators are sort of really doing amazing stuff with that. But alongside, you have Facebook, obviously close to 3 billion people, and YouTube and Instagram and so forth. So a lot of us we're spending a significant amount of time on social networks. Again, this is 2.5 hours a day, so that's really 16 hours a week type of stuff, and it's a significant part of our lives. We play games, we're on social networks, and part of that social interaction is music, because music really touches everyone. And from Australia to Zimbabwe, everybody is interested in some aspect of music, either play, dance, or listen. And what we've seen recently, when you have these massive platforms like Fortnite and Roblox, you have artists want to experiment. And Travis Scott had over 46 million people watching it. Lil Nas X on Roblox, close to 40 million people. And our portfolio company, Wave, had artists the weekend on TikTok, broke all kinds of records on TikTok. It almost brought their servers down. And recently, when I was in Paris 10 days ago, Justin Bieber was performing on Wave Live. And we don't know the numbers, but I think the numbers were even larger than, will become even larger than the others. Again, it's an interesting medium for artists, and also interesting experience for the audience, because you may not be able to go to Justin Bieber's concert in New York, but you can really experience his live performance and interact with him. And so audience loves it. Another aspect of this living live, in metaverse, is fashion and digital goods. And if you look at Fortnite, it's as profitable as Amazon in terms of its digital economy, because you buy skins and you buy, you know, weapons and other things. So 3 years ago, Fortnite's profit was the same as Amazon's profit. And then alongside, when you have that kind of audience and dynamics and economy, you attract big brands. Dolce & Gabbana has been experimenting, and we'll talk about that. And then the Dapper Labs, which is the studio behind the CryptoKitties and NFTs, NBA's Top Shot, they've been monetizing extremely well. Next. This is about the third aspect of metaverse, which is enterprise side and also the creator economy. I'm not going to touch the enterprise, giving the audience and today's focus, but you know, the creator economy part is really interesting. You know, YouTube has been paying billions of dollars to its creators, but now you have TikTok doing the same thing, and then Roblox. Roblox is really based on creator economy. You have significant percentage of Roblox kids primarily, and creating these little games, and some of them are making literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And second quarter of this year, Roblox is, you know, paid 130 million to creators. So it's almost like, you know, it's ramping up to $1 billion a year, sort of the creator economy on Roblox. And Facebook has a creator fund for their, you know, Horizon platform as they transition to Meta. And another interesting aspect of it is that next generation of games, these are play to earn games like Axie Infinity. And it is really becoming a main source of income in certain countries. In the Philippines, people are making, you know, $400 or $500 a month playing Axie Infinity and monetizing. And recently the Philippines government said they're going to have to do tax filings. So there's a significant aspect of this gaming and metaverse economy that creators can start monetizing through NFTs and also some of the games that are play to earn model. Next. So we talk about sort of what are some sectors are adopting metaverse or metaverse transitioning to metaverse or expanding to metaverse faster than the others. What we've seen is really the four of them: arts, fashion, gaming, and music. And as you know, so NFT-based monetization and you have all the decentralized economies, they really create a platform for creators to express themselves and also monetize. And also they drive adoption and growth. And I'm sure you know about Beeple selling, you know, his art for, you know, 69 million at Christie's, and Dolce & Gabbana. I'm going to actually talk about some fashion and metaverse intersection, but Dolce & Gabbana basically auctioned a collection of 9 items for 6 million, went pretty fast. And on the music side, you know, we talked about Wave and Justin Bieber's performance, and Fortnite and Roblox began drawing, you know, up to 50 million people. Why is it really important to an artist? I'll give you an example. Travis Scott had the Astroworld tour late 2019, early 2020. So he performed at 56 events in the US and 1 outside the US. So 3-month period, he performed 57 times and made $53 million. So approximately 1 million per performance, right? So that also includes all the, you know, the buses and the equipment going from city to city and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, incredible energy to connect with a live audience. So 3 months, 57 concerts, he made 53 million. On Fortnite, he performed 20 minutes, made 23 million. So incredibly different economic, you know, environment for them. And monetization is very concentrated, very sort of significant, and obviously you don't have the hassle of, you know, the equipment and the team and everything else. And so overall, like similar with Little Nas X, and what we heard is he made significant, you know, money from the performance on Roblox, and that really gives them another venue to perform, to express themselves, and also to monetize. So gaming, I left gaming blank because we're going to transition to metaverse and gaming in the next slide. So one more, please. So let's talk about what's happening on the gaming side. Our overall observation and belief is that, you know, as we move forward towards metaverse, the lines between gaming and metaverse are blurring and will continue to blur. And if you look at our investment in Digital Village in Paris, it's a platform, it's a sustainable metaverse, it will have fashion, arts, and other things, but it'll also have gaming and also have social stuff, right? So look at some of the recent funding. Again, we talked about Dapper Labs, CryptoKitties, and NBA Top Shop. It's now valued at close to $8 billion as an enterprise. As a comparison, Ubisoft has been around for a long time. Its market cap is also about 8 to 9 billion. Sky Mavis, which is the Axie Infinity, this is the play to earn game I talked about, now is worth $3 billion. And it's in a Axie Shards economy, which is a token economy they created, is about 36 billion right now, as of today. And Mythical Games, this is a company that is building a next sort of another play to earn metaverse game. And they still have a beta game, but it's worth already over 1 billion in valuation. So these are all unicorns and metacorns. Zepeto, actually, this is yesterday's announcement, raised 150 million. These are the sort of characters that they've been experimenting in South Korea with K-pop artists. So if you're into K-pop, you can watch them perform with Zepeto avatars, similar to what we talked about Wave. So they're doing on Zepeto, which is now a unicorn. And Manticore, which is really founded by Frédéric Deschamps, great French entrepreneur, is now a unicorn, raised 100 million for his multiverse, which is another next generation metaverse platform. It's not creating its own games, but it's creating a platform called Core that you can create a lot of games and other things on it. And as you know, Sauvage from France is now the fastest growing unicorn, raised $500 million a few months ago at close to 4 billion valuation. So what really means that it's an incredibly dynamic environment that you have these next generation game metaverse companies raising big chunks of money and really growing extremely fast just because there's so much interest, and a lot of them like Axie Infinity on the web, so you don't have to go through the App Store, and therefore they don't have to pay 30%, the App Store fees. Next. So I was going to talk about some of the examples of like metaverse and music intersection and gaming. So this is the artist The Weeknd performing on Wave. Dara, I don't know if we can play it a little bit.
I don't think so. I don't think I can, but I could bring it up on YouTube quickly. Would you like that?
Don't worry about it. No.
Okay,
Let's go to the next one. When you get the deck, you should be able to play. So let's talk about, gaming and metaverse intersection areas. Roblox is one of them, right? Roblox is, again, close to 50 million now daily active users. I talked about, population demographics being 50% male, female, and also 12 and under, 50% and 13 and 24. So the next cluster, it's very dynamic environment. If you ever played Roblox, it's, low poly stuff, but super fun. There are a lot of games and their environment to create games is getting better and better. If you're a creator interested in experimenting on this, sort of, I guess, prototype metaverse, Roblox is a great platform. And next one is Fortnite. Fortnite is, oops, the other way. Here we go. No, okay. Fortnite has, okay, here. And Fortnite has
I'm so sorry. Is this
Creative
correct?
Island. She is challenging me. And,
I know, I'm sorry.
If you listen to Epic Games CEO Tim, he talks about Fortnite being the metaverse. I think recently he said this will be, again, multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. Really early sort of platforms are Fortnite, Roblox, Meta, and others. So let me give you some examples of that. So we talked about the Fortnite and Roblox being metaverses. What that really means is other industries are not drawn to them because, you know, any given day you have access to 50 million people. So for a brand, it's an incredible exposure and also a great way to monetize. So this is really a small set of the brands you're seeing, from Dior to Fendi to, you know, Ralph Lauren and others are really moving to metaverse or moving to these platforms like Roblox and Fortnite. In the meantime, they're trying to craft their own metaverse strategy. And when I was in Paris a couple of weeks ago, I talked to groups from Louis Vuitton, and then I'll show you some examples of their thinking of metaverse and some experimentations done along with that. Next. So I'm going to talk about fashion a little bit, and I'm going to sort of connect it back to metaverse and gaming because it's all related. If you go to the Fendi store in Manhattan today, and Dara, if you're there, you should try it. If you go to their store, they opened it in July, and they also open a virtual store. Virtual store is identical to the physical store. This is the virtual store of Fendi, and you can actually navigate here. If you go to our portfolio company, Obsessed, which is has the platform for this, this is what they've been building for brands. So if you go to Fendi store online, and it's the same exact replica of the physical store in Manhattan, you can go around, buy things, you know, try out, and they'll ship it to you. And some brands do it totally different. They create a sort of more whimsical and maybe sci-fi type of things, but every brand is interested in bringing itself to metaverse. So next. We talked about Louis Vuitton. So they had a game they released some time ago called Louis the Game for their 200th anniversary. Basically, you collect NFTs as part of your progression model, and up to 30 of them, but you can't really sell, you can't do anything else with them. But overall, this got a lot of attention. I think the first week downloaded over 1 million times. Next. Burberry. So we talked about Mythical Games platform. So this is a beta game or metaverse platform, Blanco's Block Party, and you can again go and collect NFTs and play games and monetize. So Burberry wanted to experiment, and they created this NFT call for character Sharky B. Oops, I don't know if you can play that, Dara. There's a button on the image.
No, unfortunately,
Nope.
in bringing it up on my side in Keynote, I can't play them. But
Okay.
I will share links, and I'll share the deck out to everyone.
Okay, so basically, this is a NFT item by Burberry, and they made over 400K immediately when they released it, and we don't know how much they're making from the secondary sales. Next. Gucci also has been experimenting, and I'll have more examples of it. This is a sort of 1-minute video they created for Gucci, sort of brand experience, and one item was sold for 25K at Christie's. Again, they're experimenting. It's not necessarily for making a lot of money versus what's the audience interest. Next. Same here. And so Lagerfeld created avatars, some limited set, and then the secondary set. I think the first day they made $100,000. And again, the secondary sales are going on. You can, buy the avatar, you can dress it, you can customize it. Next. And Dolce & Gabbana. So, hey, this is working. So what you're seeing, this is an interesting experiment. Collezione Genesi. So basically, they created, really curated, very interesting 9-item collection. And when you buy it, and also you'll get the physical aspect of it, which I'll talk in upcoming slides. But this is sort of Dolce & Gabbana experimentation with metaverse and NFTs and really economies and monetization related to them. Next. So this one is interesting to spend a little bit more time. what they did is that not only they created and curated this 9-item collection, but they also created a physical version. If you buy one of the items, by the way, the whole collection was sold for $6 million very rapidly. If you buy the item, which is a highly sort of high quality 4K rendered image and animation, they also measure you, and they will send you the same item that you can wear. So it has the first, both digital and the physical aspect of it. And also you get invited to their Alta Moda shows, fashion shows for 2 years. So again, as you can see, the brands are experimenting from creating their own game to just dropping a video versus physical and digital combination, some people call phygital, that you can have an NFT collection. You can also have the physical replica of that. Next. So let's go back to, we talked about brands experimenting on metaverse. So Gucci created Gucci Garden. And again, basically, I'll have a video next slide, but I don't know if it's going to work. But basically, you go there, you experiment, you go through different rooms, you can buy things, and then you can use it on your avatars on Roblox. And you probably heard a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, Nike announced that they're going to create Nike Garden on Roblox. Next. Again, I don't think this is going to run, but there's a video that you'll see. Somebody's going through Gucci setup on Roblox, going to different rooms and dressing room, choosing items, putting your clothes on, and experimenting within Gucci, also outside Gucci on Roblox. Next. Bands similar, given Roblox that has, sort of 50% of population 12 and under and 50 over, it's a great environment for them. So they created Vans World, and it's a 3D environment. You can, again, go through them. You can buy stuff, and you can dress your avatar. You can play games, and this is a permanent store presence. I think they have overall 4 stores, and they can extend. But for Vans World, actually, it's okay to move forward. And this slide, you'll see a video that shows how you can really do play in Vans World on Roblox and buy items and everything else for your avatar and environment. Next. So from Roblox to Fortnite, Fortnite has an older audience, primarily male. For Balenciaga, they created Strange Times experience on Fortnite. We talked about Fortnite Creative Islands. So there's a virtual store. You can buy items, and you can, Fortnite, you buy a lot of skins and for your character. So you can buy Balenciaga items, and you can, dress your character. You can, go to missions with that. And also, if you want to, you can connect to, as you see at the bottom, you can buy the actual item that you like on your avatar in Fortnite. Next. Again, this is a video that you'll see a character buying Balenciaga items in the store and then going on a mission. So what's next? Oops, don't go there yet. So I hope that I was able to sort of put a sort of fabric together for you that gaming and metaverse are really merging, and gaming is not the first sector jumping on metaverse, but also the largest platform to attract the creator economy. And as a result, you have this art, fashion, and music sort of rushing to work on this platform to understand what metaverse means to them economically and or from the brand presence and messaging perspective. And from the gaming side, bringing art, fashion, and music on your platform or on their platform is really important because it increases your audience engagement. It really opens opens to broader audience globally. So there's an interesting mix of metaverse and gaming happening at the moment, and will continue to expand. So what's next? Next slide, I said, je ne sais pas, but I think it'll be amazing. So that ends my presentation. I hope this was helpful. but I'm open to answer any questions you might have. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, and for everyone putting up with some slight technical issues on my side. This was great, and it's a ton of information. Does anyone have questions right off the bat? I know it is a lot to consider. How many of you have been exposed to information like this before, or understand certain aspects of investing? Okay. Oh, good. Actually, more people than I thought. That's fantastic. I know we have some people here working across different industries that were represented that you talked about, Marco. I think it's really important to know how independent creators can fit into this, because all of these ideas that are being funded at this amount all were concepts in a baby phase at some point, and many of them still are early stage concepts. They're just being worked on incredibly quickly by people who are capitalizing on this moment. So I would love, Marco, if maybe you could share with some of our creators a little bit about things that they should consider in terms of a longer game for what the market looks like. And as they build out their projects, of course, they're adhering to their artistic intentions, but also to understand what is sellable.
Yeah, so I think it's probably one of the best environments for creators, and in terms of sort of having a platform to express and monetize. You know, obviously you have people type of, you know, sort of presence and really monetizing, but also we're seeing sort of broader participation across the whole creator economy, and really global. The other aspect of metaverse, it really opens up global creative economy. And what we're seeing is obviously NFTs have been super popular, but not NFTs, but in the context of metaverse, right? And metaverse, first of all, if you look at Roblox is almost like a $49 to $50 billion company. It's really because of the creators, right? Because Roblox doesn't make any games. It relies on incredible number of creators to come up with this, you know, amazing and awesome ideas to engage the audience. And Fortnite, yes, you know, Epic built a Fortnite, but Fortnite, you know, interesting part is that you go into these missions and others, but you buy equipment, you buy skins and everything, and bring in music, bring in fashion brands to Fortnite. It really sort of opens up another venue. Some of these platforms are closed platforms, so creators cannot really go in there and then say, I'm going to create custom, you know, skin for, you know, others to buy. But the new ones are open. You know, Sandbox is open, and you know, Somnium is open, OVR is open, and Digital Village coming up. By the way, Digital Village, the one in Paris, you can sign up for it, and they're going to need a lot of creator help, because scalability of the platform really solely relies on creators, and in order to attract them, they have to give them a platform to monetize. So we're seeing really more democratized way of creators expressing and really getting rewards for their awesome creations.
I think I found the correct link to Digital Village, and
digitalvillage.io.
Yep.
It's in beta right now. I encourage you all to sign for it, sign up with them. Early beta would be in January, February timeframe. And also, by the way, I'm in Paris every 2-3 months. So if you're in town, we can get together, grab coffee. And also I'm active on Twitter and LinkedIn, but mostly on Twitter. But overall, I'm really excited about the sort of next generation of game platforms, our sort of combination of game and metaverse, and driven by creative economies.
Thank you for as well opening up and inviting any of our participants to reach out to you. Another question that came up this morning with another speaker of ours, Tyler Pidgeon, understanding how to market an experience. Is it an art piece? Is it a game? Is it both? How do you share that? And I think that what's going on right now with trends, where you're seeing Balenciaga fit into video games. You're having avatars buy their skins or their fashion to go run around. I think it's an incredible moment to see the blend of the two, because video games, in my opinion, are absolutely artworks. And then you can absolutely gamify things like fine art or digital artwork. So with your understanding of what is viable and what is worth investing in, how would you advise our participants to know how to talk about their works in a way that other people will want to believe in and want to financially work with?
So it will, so first of all, I think it's a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
And because they each need each other to,
Yes.
to make it a more, sort of lively and interesting environment. In terms of creator, it just depends on the sort of specific area of focus. I think for like, we're seeing creators that have been building these amazing 3D environments or interesting like fashion pieces and so forth. And they're now coming to metaverses, right? They want to come to a sandbox. They want to come to a block party. They want to come to Roblox to say, again, by the way, Roblox is low poly right now, but Roblox is also going to improve the image resolution, so you'll have a higher quality avatars. And I don't have a single recommendation other than I would encourage anybody interested in sort of saying, hey, I'm really, my focus is in, say, 3D art or landscapes. Again, they need landscapes. Metaverses need landscapes because they cannot build enough of them alone, right? So whatever the art area that you're interested in, if it's just the clothing, and they need you on all these platforms. Because I mean, if you look at the user side of it, the user side is that, yes, I enjoy playing XYZ game or Roblox and Fortnite, but I also want to look the way I want to look, or I want to sort of experiment with different things. So having the optionality of saying, I want my avatar to dress from whatever the brand is, and I want to have that choice of choosing the art, creator's piece on my avatar or my character, I think is empowering, and it should give us, sort of better representation of our digital agency.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree with you, and I think that it is very tied into a following question of, from where you sit in the industry, what would you look at investing in, and what would you need to understand where someone is going? And this has come up a few times in terms of how one is marketing or telling the story about their project, or how a company or a creator is defining what they're doing and what they would need to show in order to get the attention of a company or an investor or a fund. Things that have already come up, just as an example, discussing prototyping and to what extent that needs to be fleshed out versus, is it a very early stage, and understandably so. Any thoughts on that, especially for people that are in a pre-production phase?
So I think there's, we talked about these platforms and emerging ones like Axie Infinity and others, and Sandbox and so forth. There is a good case for a creator, and if she or he wants to really go onto these platforms and really express and monetize, right? And it could be a very interesting economic model for them. And so, but that doesn't necessarily mean a venture fund would be interested in investing, because our usually investment parameters are about, can this scale to be 100 million a year company in terms of revenues, right? So sometimes what could be super interesting and extremely lucrative monetization in experience or environment for a creator may not really make it appealing to a venture fund. That's sometimes they don't necessarily work together, and we've seen it many times. So as a result, sort of our interest is somebody building a scalable stuff, scalable product, scalable platform, scalable art, and now, for example, generative art. Can they really create the generative art? And so that it scales, and it could be on multi-platforms, And one example I'll give you is Ready Player Me. Again, it may not be art from perhaps your perspective. But Ready Player Me has been creating avatars, custom avatars, and they've been creating avatars on multi-platforms. So one of the things about metaverse we haven't talked about is interoperability. If you're a creator, do you have to create a new version for every platform, right? That's a lot of work. Or can you leverage your creation on all platforms? So interoperability is really important, but it's still in early phases. Ready Player Me avatar system is now on 60+ platforms. So you can really express yourself and dress your avatar, and then it'll be the same on all these platforms they're supporting. But from venture perspective, scalability is really important for us.
I will pause to look at the time, knowing again, it's quite early for you. Thank you for this.
Okay.
Day.
Any other questions from the audience?
Actually, you almost already answered, but I just want to make sure I understand your answer. I was wondering, so most investment goes to platforms and technology from what I can guess or tell from what you're saying. And I was wondering why, or if you know more content focused investment strategies.
So I think your reading is correct, although we do invest in content and gaming, and I can't disclose it, but we're investing, for example, in a creator in Europe who's been designing brand new items for metaverse, and she's got a business model that is scalable. So we're investing in that alongside three other firms. So we're open to that. I think you'll find more venture funds are really becoming more interested in content and creative side. But in the past, or typical, as you said, more on the deep tech and technology and product platform. But for metaverse to flourish and really happen, we need the creative side. So like this investment, which is probably a good example of what's to come, is a single creator building a platform, expressing herself for digital fashion items across many metaverses. So we're open to it. I think you'll see more of it. Unfortunately, in general, though, I must say early stage investing in Europe is challenging.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think there may be a bridge between metaverse and reality in the way because I love 2D games, and I don't know if there is a place in metaverse for 2D games. So perhaps we may use the metaverse for making some ads and some community to for they buy the game, but play it not in the metaverse outside. I don't know if it's.
So when you say 3D, do you mean like 3D is like virtual reality 3D, or?
Actually, I don't know the metaverse, so I don't know if the Fortnite and Roblox are accessible on screen, or if you need VR.
You don't need any of you don't need any of them. So Roblox
Yep. So you can jump from 2D games to a Fortnite to okay.
Yep. Fortnite and Roblox, you can play it on mobile, you can play it on PC, you can play it on console, right?
Okay.
And the next generation games that I talked about, like the CryptoKitties and Axie Infinity and Sandbox and so forth, their browser, you can just go through. A lot of them actually are through the browser, and so they don't have to go through the App Store. And, for a developer, 30% tariff on App Store is significant. So and also a lot of them are built on blockchain decentralized platforms, so you have access to them simply from any browser, Mozilla and others.
Okay, it's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
This group of participants is made up of some people who are doing mixed reality artworks, mixed reality games, and then traditional games. And everyone has a different background in terms of multimedia or being an artist. And it's an interesting, very diverse set of minds and attitudes in terms of how projects are going to get built out and what people have been exposed to. And so in terms of the talk that you gave, Marco, I think for some people, you know, right in line with talking about the metaverse, and for some people it's an introduction. So it is exciting to sort of meet everyone at this middle ground of understanding what's coming and what's next and how it might apply to their work in particular.
Yeah, again, you know, please reach out to me. My messages are open on Twitter. I mean, there, you know, our ecosystem is pretty busy and active on Twitter. And there's a lot of stuff going on right now, but I feel like we're in the beginning of this incredible 5-10 year period that will change our lives. And I'm not saying we should all be digital, but I think there's lines also not only blurring between metaverse and gaming, and also will blur between physical and digital agencies.
I completely agree. And the fact that we're able to have these open conversations within communities like Twitter. And I highly urge anyone who's not active within gaming and or XR or mixed reality Twitter to start looking for different groups. If you want to follow Marco, or you can find me on Twitter and start looking at who we're following, the conversations we're retweeting, if you're not already active in those spaces. Maybe you're active in one and not the other, but I personally think that Twitter, certain Discords, Discord channels are the places to be part of those conversations. Marco was talking about how there's so much attention being paid by mainstream media and news covering the metaverse. But it only paints, I think, a very small picture of what's really happening on the ground in terms of technological advancements, different artists who are making statements that are being really celebrated, different people whose ideas are being pushed and molded. Also different events. Something that I do a lot for my own education is I'll see different events happening around the world related to topics that I'm very interested in or want to know more about. And even if I can't attend the event, I will go see the speakers who are presenting, and I'll go find other talks that they're giving, because obviously those are industry voices. So these are different resources for you. And of course, if any of you follow up questions about that stuff of where to find this info, we can direct you. But again, I do want to be mindful of Marco's time. And Marco, if you can stay on and answer any other questions, that's fantastic, but you have to run. We're over time at this point. Does
I'll be, I'm sorry,
Pardon?
I'll be happy to stay if there are more questions. And also, like I said, I'm in Paris now every 2-3 months. So I should be there sometime in February. I'd be happy to have a group session. So, but really great to be talking to you all, and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any other follow-up questions or comments right now?
Perhaps one other. What's the place of independent creators, independent company in the multiverse? Because you speak a lot of big Facebook and everything, and Fortnite, but what's the place for small one and creators? How to create, how to have a place in the multiverse?
So the reason I bring up Roblox, because for a creator, and she or he will access to literally 50 million people a day, right? So the exposure is huge from that perspective. Yeah, and in terms of small, you know, and then you can really go after, like what we're seeing right now is they go to Somnium space. It's a smaller metaverse. And or you go to OVR and others, and then you can create your own environment and tell people about it. And when I was in Amsterdam at the conference right before I went to Paris, we had a creator. She created this, I would say like a garden, very small environment on Minecraft for mental health. So she wanted people to come and really sort of talk to each other. But she built this beautiful environment on Minecraft.
Oh, that's
and then
cool.
Yeah, she wants to do it now on Roblox and Sandbox. You know, Sandbox is another French company that raised 93 million. And so all these new metaverses, I think they're looking for diversity of expression. So if you're an artist, you can say, hey, I'm going to create my own space on this miniverse. And I'm just going to experiment with that. So Bianca is her name, the artist. She did this fantastic mental health garden set up in beautiful, expression and attracting people to talk to each other, maybe talk to care providers and so forth. So I see that to be a really powerful way for a creator to express, themselves, and it doesn't have to be part of Roblox or Fortnite. It could be one of these smaller, corner of some metaverse, and you say, come to my verse and really enjoy my art or talk to me about a certain topic that I'm interested in.
Okay, and just because I'm a newbie, how the different multi-universe are connected or not yet? Is there a bridge between them?
It's a problem right now because we talk about interoperability, and right now the model is that they're gated communities, right? You're sort of, if you're on Fortnite, you can transfer whatever you have to Roblox or other things. What we're hoping that with the Web 3.0, which is sort of metaverse, that it'll be more interoperable, more open, more transparent, so that if you create something here, you should be able to take the, ideally you go from Sandbox to, Block Party to, Somnium and all that kind of stuff. It's not there yet. There's an attempt to do it, but I wouldn't say it's going to happen immediately, just because everybody wants to control their, garden in a way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that besides my more personal projects, like the one I'm working with during Digital Playgrounds, my work consists of advising brands, luxury and fashion, mostly brands, about digital experiences. So I was very familiar with Roblox, Sandbox, Fortnite, etc. And I just wanted to say that the presentation you gave was pure gold, like really, really, really important examples and really, really interesting. And I would love, if you're in Paris, can I take you for a coffee? I would really enjoy it, because right now the questions and the things I would love to talk with you might not interest everyone. So please, I will reach out to you and please let's have coffee.
Yeah, definitely. So please connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and we can exchange email. And the fashion part is really important to me. And as part of my personal interests, I had this fashion, art, and music interest in terms of creator, sort of creation, the creative part expressing themselves in relation to our investment thesis. But fashion has been an incredibly fast moving sector for metaverse, as you know. And again, my Louis Vuitton discussion in Paris 2 weeks ago was like, what does that mean for the brand, right? Beyond this Louis the game they came up with, how do they really become a part of metaverse? And we should definitely talk about it, because there's two aspects of it, in my opinion, if I can say one more thing. One is like taking a brand to a metaverse, any metaverse, right? Roblox, Fortnite, Sandbox, and others. The other one is creating their own metaverse.
Of course.
Right.
And both of them, of course, both of them, at first they want something really similar to their codes and aesthetics. And when they see Roblox, they sort of panic. And then when you explain to them that it's cheaper and it might be a bit cleverer to go where the people are already there, to go towards Fortnite or just invest these pre-existing and pre-living spaces and just modify them, they understand. But each and everyone are so into and so curious about the metaverse. They all want a piece of it. It's crazy.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think there was a Gucci bag was sold for $4,000, which was more expensive than the physical bag. And as you know, there's no inventory problem, right? There's no return.
And they had a backlash about this. So knowing about this allows us to advise other brands to maybe not go that far with the prices, and like seeing the collaboration Balenciaga x Fortnite with the clothes, both as skins for the players and as IRL, in real life clothes you can buy. This worked really much better.
Yeah.
This was a great example of a bridge between these two realities, virtual reality and real reality.
Yeah,
Even if I
absolutely right. Absolutely right. So yeah, let's definitely
Okay,
connect, but thanks for your time. I hope this was interesting. Download the PowerPoint, send me questions. Would love to get together and also talk in the meantime about areas of interest.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Marco.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful day.
Well, thanks for including me. Have a great day.
Thank you, Marco.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bonne soirée.
So I'm glad everyone, I feel like everyone was really excited about speakers today. There was so much engagement, a lot of questions. Also, as a heads up, at the end of this week into the next few months, we'll send out a survey to all of you to better understand, which talks you really felt made the most sense and which talks made no sense but were really helpful, which ones you want to hear more of, which ones weren't, that important to you. And that's really helpful. And seeing that many people were engaged, especially from very different perspectives, between Manny being introduced to these concepts, which I'm so glad you were asking things about that, because we're all learning new things here. And then Melanie, you're working in it, consulting brands already on metaverse content and strategy. So it's great to share all of this. And yes, I'll send everything through. For all of our speakers, all of them have an online presence in terms of like online or Twitter or LinkedIn, and they're all active mostly in those spaces, Twitter, LinkedIn in particular. And then those that created presentations, I will reach out to them and ask if they can share those. And then, Marco already said yes, so I'll either drop that in Discord or email it out to everyone. Did I still leave that open? So very quickly, Cami and I were just discussing, we had mentioned the other day wanting to go through people's presentations, your projects, and really, break down elements of that before the end of the week, knowing that we're not gonna be able to do everyone's. In Discord last night, I know some people saw it. I asked how we could best help you guys this week. I know a few people did respond and say that they would appreciate that help, but maybe doing it one-on-one. So I wanted to quickly check, does everyone want me to go through a project right now in the time that we have, or would you prefer to maybe set up one-on-ones over the next few months to really talk about what your deck and what your project might need as we move into February?
As I said on Discord, for me, I need the time to think about things, and it will be very, very, very cool if you have time to take the time to have another session or some sessions individually as you want to work on it, but next month or in January as you want.
Okay.
If you don't have time, if you don't have time for a session, maybe we can write or something like that, chat about this.
Sure, definitely. I want you all to know that in the months, or I guess this month and then January, you can reach out to me at any point with questions. As I was saying, if you think of people that you would like to meet with or different places to go, as long as you're communicating that, I can incorporate that into the endless notes I've been taking on all of this week. Any other opinions on whether we want to do that now? We have 15 minutes. So we had talked about going through Joy's project. We just randomly picked you, Joy. There was no reason. We just picked you. We put you on oh gosh, now I'm forgetting my own language. We put you on the spotlight. There we go. I don't know. But if anyone feels nervous about that, of course, we don't want to make you feel pushed, but I'm also happy if it's going to benefit you, and it's not going to be a criticism. It's just like, hey, let's talk more about this. does someone want to go right now? We could try it and, okay, let's, if that's okay. I know we said Joy before, but Antoine is excitedly raising his hand. No. We kind of like jumped it.
No, if you want to go first, Joy, it's fine. It's very fine. Didn't get it, so as you want. I don't really care.
Is that okay, Joy? I mean, we're going to go through all of them at some point.
That's okay, go on.
Okay. So Antoine,
I didn't know, but I really didn't want to jump.
No. I was saying, no, you're doing nothing wrong. I was just saying that just because we had said Joy the other day. So if that's okay, we will go through everyone's project. Okay. I do promise. Let me bring up your document really quick because I have all your. Cami was amazing and made all these documents for me of everyone's projects. Also, I said the other day, everyone has such strong visual taste and such different taste. And it's really cool to see that. So share screen. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
If everyone is okay, it may be interesting that everyone has the PDF presentation of any project. Mm-hmm. We may share it to each other. Just
yeah, I can send out a document. I can send out the one that Cami made. Actually, we already did. I forgot this. So all of you have your bios and your projects listed in that document that shows the schedule. That's also in Discord, and I think Cami emailed it to you last week. So if you scroll to the bottom,
yes, I read it, yes, but there is more pictures in the PDF, more, you know.
But there are links for all of the projects.
Oh yeah, okay.
So if you go down there to the project description, all of them should be linked and not have any permission issues. So anyone should go in. But okay, so let's jump into this in the bit of time we have. I know I can go a little bit over.
Sorry, but are we discussing the pitch deck or the CNC file? I'm not sure because what I read, it's
the pitch deck.
Complete file. But this is the pitch deck.
This is the file I sent to the CNC. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's just in English, but it's the same one. It's a very first draft, so it's mostly texts.
But you have another document for the pitch, right? No, maybe I'm mistaken, but
no. I just had a little demo.
Oh yeah, right.
Now I have more of course, mood boards and images, but it's not made as a deck.
Okay, sorry about that.
I was just writing to a meeting I have because this is important and I will come to that meeting later. So for this, some people sent in documents that were pitch decks. Some people sent in high-level concept documents like this one. It's fine because we know all of you are working on it. So it's okay not to have everything perfectly polished. So first off, I think for Mount Digital, this is, as I was saying before, these are all really beautifully designed decks from a visual perspective. I think right off the bat, maybe at some point, and you don't have to have it now, coming up with your logo and really pulling people into the tone of your experience right from that first slide. Also, depending upon who you're speaking with, and I'm sure you already do this anyway, Antoine, that you would specify that this is a funding deck versus a collaboration deck and stating that right off the bat. Because I know that when I get projects, sometimes I'll get them and I'm not really sure what the purpose when I'm going through. I'll get the understanding of the project, but I'm not exactly sure why it's being shared with me. So being able to say, this is a funding deck and we're going to talk about funding needs right off the bat versus, you know, it's a proposal for a publisher. I'm just coming up with examples. So things like that, just helping communicate. Very beautiful. I feel like when looking through this deck, I'm getting a tone of solitude I think that there is definitely something very ghostly to it, but I don't know if I would have picked up that sense of other worlds or a bit of paranormal without having known that first, just going through the images. So considering how your images are informing the text on screen, it's coming off as a sense of loneliness, the different images that you have chosen. Does that feel right for what the tone you're setting?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I guess, yeah.
I'm making sure that if I was just looking at this for the first time, these are some of the thoughts that pop into my head.
No, definitely.
So going through here, Map Digital, an immersive installation. Pardon as I just reread it from Monday. So as you're explaining depth, or not the depth, but the distance and the size of your installation, I think in a future deck, it would be really helpful for you and for anyone that's creating specifically immersive pieces to create a diagram to scale of the space that you would need. I've worked on some XR pieces, and I know it's feedback I've received in the past where it helped to understand the scale of the participant in relation to the overall experience, especially if it's inside of a venue or in a public space versus their home, because that's going to help people begin to understand how much space and like power and electricity needs. And if you're going to a festival, like this definitely feels like a festival piece. If you're going to a festival, thinking about those specs, and I know that, for example, you've done Sundance before and you've worked with the tech crew in order to do that when you went on site for the installation. But if you're looking for funding,
we did a smaller, yeah.
You did a smaller thing.
We did a showcase in Sundance because it was too big for Sundance. So we worked on a specific budget, a specific version of the project for Sundance. But yeah.
If this is, I'm just looking through as you're saying that, because in the case of a lot of installations, I know that people have to really parse down in order to fit inside the venue. And for a piece like yours that should be fully experienced at its maximum size, maybe creating something to consider, maybe creating 2 different slides in a future deck. One that would be the minimized experience and saying, we could do this, but this is how it would be compromised. And this is how we would fit it into a small size, like at a festival or in someone's house. Like if they could try to do it in their home, but then what is the ideal experience, and really blowing that up into an incredible space and showing the scale of the person in the environment that you want them in, and creating a mock-up of that and being able to actually have the measurements, because that will just help communicate the idea, especially to anyone doing logistics and producing for it. Do you have, so as it's describing a small hill, are you wanting this to be on an actual physical hill in the world, or you imagine this built as a hill?
No, I think it should be in a natural place, whether like a big park or an abandoned area in a city. For instance, after Sundance, actually, I had a lot of meetings with different people in LA and curators who were interested in having the show in abandoned parts of the city. And I think this is really interesting, and this is really the direction I'd like to try, is to explore a real space, and not a black box or a white cube, or I don't know how to call it, but really confront the augmented reality to the real, reality of the cities and of the people around. And yeah, that's mainly my goal, is to find a place in partnership with an institution, or several institutions, actually.
I think from a funding perspective, I'm wearing so many hats right now. I have my producer hat, my director hat, my strategy hat, wearing them all. From a partnership strategy standpoint, a way in which this could be successful in the US is if you partnered with organizations like the National Lands Trust or a state park, the considerations there, of course, would be internet and electrical access and then weather. But there is funding associated for installation art pieces inside of national parks. And there's so many national parks here, or state parks. It could also be a state park or a city park. But having spaces like those, and then maybe also adding in a physical installation piece to that environment so that there's an artwork that could attract people or make them aware that they are at the location. Kind of like on slide 6, you have these monoliths, those glowing white monoliths.
Yeah, that was the last installation. That
this is your last one.
Yeah, it's the last one. So
Okay.
exactly, you had this big sculpture and people, but that's for museums. That's not for outside. But yeah, exactly. So you have this big sculpture.
Yeah.
I mean, and also we don't really see, but there are like houses and there is a fossilized forest. You know?
It looks beautiful, by the way. It looks like a music
Thank
video
you.
set. Yeah, and I mean that in the best way. I love music videos. It just feels very textured.
Yeah. We worked with an amazing friend sculptor artist for this set, and she's really amazing.
I'm thinking of some really cool locations that might be interested in this type of stuff. I don't know if they've done mixed reality before, but outside of just national parks in general, and again, there is funding associated with art installations inside of parks at the United States. I'm sure that you have something similar in France, but that is one of the very few government funded ways to find funding. A couple other places that come to my mind for you to consider. There's a place called Storm King. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. Storm King is a gigantic sculpture garden in upstate New York City, and they're solely focused on artwork. And then what was the other place I was going to list? Damn it. Oh, yeah. There's a place in New York in Queens. Queens is a neighborhood in New York, or a borough. It's called Socrates Sculpture Park. And this guy bought this plot of land. It's not huge, but it's incredible. It's facing Manhattan, right across the water in Queens. And the only purpose it serves is for sculptural works and installations, and no one can build on it unless you're doing artwork. And it's really cool, and it's a place that I highly recommend that you might want to go check out. It's also privately run, so artists will contact them and want to do installations there.
Nice. Yeah.
Also, something else, just while it's on my mind. So earlier this year for Tribeca Film Festival, which is a festival that happens in the US, in New York. They had a bunch of interactive artworks and mixed reality pieces that they installed all over New York. So while there was a main festival location and most of the mixed reality that was installed there was on site, they had some AR artworks that were randomly placed around New York, and you had to travel to them. And they weren't these huge things. They were like walking AR audio tours, or like these beautiful artworks that would pop up, and you had to engage with them if you found them. So maybe there's also a thought of doing something like that. Tribeca is very open as a festival to those types of installs.
I think this is a great idea. This is maybe the main, like the first, maybe the first strategy to partner with a big festival and an institution, so we can open with the festival and can stay after. And actually it was the goal. So the COVID like stopped this project that you're seeing a few images from on the file, but I had meetings with some people at the New York Film Festival who were interested in also in supporting the installation in New York. So we were looking for different places in New York, and Armory Park was interested. So I had a crazy meeting with the director of Armory Park, but it was too big. And anyway, and I think it would be really cool to have a festival that can promote actually the launch of an event, you know, an experience like this, and after an institution that can follow up on that. And so everybody, you know, I think it would be wonderful to do it in the park, but at first in a city, you know, with the crowd, with people who can talk about it like for a few weeks, for a few months, because these are pretty big, so it needs maybe a lot of time to be experienced. That would be like the main model, you know. But then I don't know if it's doable. We'll see, you know. But that's like the first, yeah, to have a festival and another partner who can just continue what was started with the festival. So maybe Tribeca, but not Sundance because it's supposed to be outside.
Yeah, and it's
and
so
it
cold.
would be too cold. Yeah.
Yeah, this is now producer hat coming out of like, yeah, when are the periods that would be best for this project? I also sent you a link as an example. It's a project at a studio I used to work for. I didn't work on the project itself, but I actually covered it for a magazine, and then I worked for the studio. But this piece, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's with an incredible team. The studio is super bright, and then they partnered with Kailu, or not Kailu Guan, Su Gwen, who's an incredible. Please look up the work of Su Gwen. She's tagged in the comment. She's the artist, and she's so cool. She makes collaborative artwork with robots that she trains. So cool. She's so cool. But this piece that they made together, it's called Into the Light. So what you're seeing for the location is the inside of Tribeca's immersive gallery. So it was on site at Tribeca Film Festival in 2019. But the really cool part of this is that there were multiple installations and markers all over the venue. So you had to literally walk through the venue and trigger these, and then you went all the way onto the roof of the building. So it was leading you through stairwells and all this kind of thing. And I feel like this is also a relevant case that if you went to a festival, maybe you could talk about doing an installation like this, where it's like, yes, it's part of the festival, but it's going to be unconventionally placed. And it's going to be a different experience. So this is an example of an award-winning piece that the creator successfully communicated to a festival how many different special needs it needed. And also just, I think, Cami, I'm seeing that you have to run. Can you transfer ownership of the meeting to me? Because I can stay on another minute or two to finish this conversation, problem. And anyone else can stay if you want.
Yeah, of course. Okay, thank you everybody, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Feel better.
Bye.
I'm sorry, actually, I won't be there tomorrow because I've had something I said yes to, and
no,
so
that's fine.
That's why I said maybe I can go first for this.
That's absolutely okay. And again, knowing that not everyone, like, we're not going to cover everyone's project, but if this is valuable for you guys, I'm happy to go intimately through every project like we're doing right now, and for everyone to learn from it. And if anyone's nervous about doing it together, we can do it one-on-one too. So where did I put the link to your project? I have so many documents up. Oh my God. Where did I? Give me a second. All right, Camila. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, some of these considerations are so incredibly important. And I think giving, again, Antoine, I know you've done tons of festivals, but I think just giving anyone a heads up on exactly what you need. Another thought is building a fake hill, which is not ideal, of course, for your vision. But if you had a festival that had a large enough space, you could make the case to use an entire soundstage. There's a festival that I went to, normally takes place, I'm thinking a couple years ago, normally takes place at a production studio, and they'll section off small little areas for everyone's artwork. But there was this one project, also it was a French team too, I'm forgetting their name, but they were amazing. They had multiple projects in the festival. It was in New York, and they needed a massive space for one of their installations. And so they used an entire soundstage. It was huge. And they made the strong case about it because they're like, if you're going to have this piece in the festival, you cannot have it at any smaller scale. And it was really impactful. And they did build it out in this space. So there is that thought. In terms of funding for a project like this, you could go through a grant at a place like a state park, or, you know, go through a city's, you know, arts and grants office or something. But another thing is if you made a strong case about the tech that you're going to use, because there are some companies that I think just would not have technology that could hold up literally in the wild. So maybe it's also a use case study about durability for certain pieces of technology. Like Snapchat is trying to do more and more stuff with having their glasses being out in the world instead of just in a laboratory. And a project like this could be interesting to Snapchat as a durability use case for how well their glasses hold up. So thinking strategically about how you could pitch to a company, even though you're not just talking about the artwork, you're like, I'm making this specifically about your tech. Let me do this, let us test it, and I'll like do research on your technology afterwards. But that's another consideration of funding, is making it relevant for them. Yeah, I'm sure you've considered a lot of these options. Do you have funding for your project?
No, it's great to have your insight also from the US, because
Sure.
of course we thought about things, but you know, what really exists and what really works, it's different.
I'm glad that it is helpful. And also at any point in time, if I'm sharing feedback or in conversation with any of you and you're like, wait, that's the same, or I already have that solved, just tell me, because I'd rather you just give me a heads up than I keep going on it. So I know, jumping back to your deck briefly, I know that you said you've been working on mood boards, and so that's fine. We'll just jump over that slide. Slide 4 is not formatted. If you can see this, slide 4 is not formatted for
Exactly.
me.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't see that.
That's okay. That's
yeah.
all right. You still got into the program.
No, it's just in there. I mean, it's not supposed to be like this, but yeah.
So also, I see that you have another person on your project, Ferdinand. He's invited to attend any of this stuff if you want him to, or if he's available, just because he's on the project. But as you know, just building out more of a team slide and maybe having individual slides. Sometimes I know for some artists, it's hard to, and I don't know if you are this way, but sometimes it's hard for us to openly talk about ourselves. But I think that especially for a director or a co-collaborator, you should each have your own slide, and there should be a photo, because that's going to help people identify and connect to you. And there should be bios on each of you, and then links out to website or social media, LinkedIn, whatever it is. And I'm sure that you, again, do stuff like that normally, but for anyone else that may or may not do that, being able to establish your team is, in my opinion, the first time that someone can start trusting the vision, because then I can click through and be like, oh, who's Antoine? Why is he the one making this? What is his background? What has he worked on? Is this the first time he's done a project like this? And so being able to offer yourself, almost like show your resources, show what you have done, maybe even for all of you to also have a slide that shows your past work. So it has your bio and a photo and contact information. And then the next slide are pieces from your portfolio for projects and that kind of stuff. Something else I think that is really important, and I was going to bring this up earlier during a talk, and I'm glad that it's coming up now, showing things in progress, which is one of the hardest damn things for artists to do. And I hate doing it myself. But if you can show things in progress, it's helpful to see where someone is imagining their vision is going to go. So even if it's not at a state that you would ever publish or like show to the world, if you're sharing a private deck like this, a presentation, showing that you started doing concept art, showing that you are plotting out the script. And we are going to go over storylines. And I know for certain projects like Manny, you were talking about not necessarily wanting to write or feeling like it's not as linear, or that's just not exactly the focus of your piece, it's really helpful for other people to start understanding where you're going, even if it's a very short synopsis. I'm trying to think if there's I don't mean to call you out directly, Manny, it was just a comment that was made earlier. Something like—
You're absolutely right. No, normally I put like my bio and a few images, but here it was like, also it was so early in the process that I didn't really know who was going to be in a team. You know, I'm still looking for a choreographer, for maybe a writer, maybe things are really open. Yeah.
Yeah, I figure, because I know that everyone, and that's what's so cool also about this program, is that every one of you, you're all professionals that work in these industries. So, like there is very much a peer-to-peer understanding of what's needed, but I know that we all do different types of work. So again, that's why I keep saying to you, Antoine, like, I'm sure you do already do these things.
No, you're right.
But if anyone else may or may not do those, I think it's just a good learning moment to be like, your deck should really communicate who you are and what you offer. And if you won awards, say you won awards, show that. Just having a really rounded sense of why you are the person who should be telling this story. And I'm saying that to everybody. Something else.
And also, I think there is, to criticize my own file, I think there is way too much text. But it's just because it was really at first like a first draft, and I only had text. But I know that the next ones I will really try to get away with the, put the text away.
Oh, I have a random thought, and your brain might already be here too, but the way in which you could tell the story of your piece, what a user would gain, like from the moment that they engage with the piece to the end, is like literally build out the experience, the story arc as a hill. That would just be kind of a cool visual metaphor. I'm thinking of anything else that might be relevant here, because I know I'm going to have to hop in a second to go into my day of meetings. I think perhaps for everyone, and I'll communicate this to the rest of the group, for everyone to be working, of course, on their projects over the next few months, and we, checking in and getting feedback and all this kind of stuff. But by the time that you come to New York, figuring out the holes in your team that you might need to fill. And even if there's not necessarily funding at this point, going like, I'm going to really need a choreographer, to Antoine's point, or, we already talked about script writing, that's understood, but maybe someone like, I really want to work on sound design. And then, I'll partner you with Kareem, because I am starting to figure out who I need to mentor or work with you individually on each of your projects. So if you start identifying like, I really need a dancer, we can connect you, make that happen. And speaking of Antoine, I have like 3 or 4 dancers already waiting in the wings that are
cool.
finding, yeah, absolutely. Some wonderful friends of mine who specifically work in dance and mixed reality, and they understand dance and mixed reality because they look at the full body as design UX for mixed reality experiences. So how do you utilize the entire body, not just as a dancer, but actually as a designer, to engage with emerging tech? And just really interesting minds in that world. Actually, just to show off someone I really care about. His name's Brandon Powers, and he's a professional choreographer and specifically choreographs for volumetric capture and mixed reality pieces. Here's a beautiful project that he did. Hopefully trailer. Yeah, there should be a trailer there. So I'm hoping to bring Brandon in to work with you, Antoine, and for anyone else that has choreography needs. I still have to chat with him about his schedule, but we're hoping. And then actually the next meeting that I have is with a writer who does playwriting in New York City. And let me ask you guys here, she doesn't directly work in gaming and mixed reality, but she's an award-winning script writer for plays and for film. So would you want to meet with someone like her who can talk about script writing? She, again, doesn't necessarily work on all the projects you guys are working on, but she knows how to engage and work with people in spatial, in a spatialized way for different experiences like plays and film.
Nice.
Is that the type of person that you guys would want to talk to? I'm thinking of different types of writers for each of you.
Sure. I mean, I'm going to send you a list also anyway, but yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, awesome. I'll chat with her to see if she's
thanks a lot
relevant.
for this. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I think it was you, Antoine. I don't remember who it was the other day who was saying that they really wanted multidisciplinary people.
More, sorry?
I think it was you who was saying that you really wanted exposure to people from different backgrounds, professional backgrounds.
Yeah, I think, you know, from different like perspectives, basically people from, you know, really know what museums, for instance, are looking for right now, you know, or more for like performing arts, or more from, you know, because I think what's interesting in this kind of mixed reality experiences that we're bringing together a lot of different disciplines, and obviously we don't come from all of them, you know, so we can really get, we can really learn from a lot of different people. And yeah, so yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that that's always how I prefer to work, because it helps me learn more about the world around me through different perspectives. So I think hopefully that's a shared sentiment with everyone.
Sorry, it froze for a second. So.
Oh, I froze. Okay. I was just saying I share the same mindset, and I hope that it's shared for everyone. I think it's a great way to learn.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you. I went, you know, briefly over your project, but I hope that these things were helpful for you or for anyone else. Does anyone have questions about why I said those specific things about Antoine's project? We're all on the same page about all of those things, just in terms of understanding why. Yay, I love that. That's great. Thank you. All right,
thanks a lot for taking this time, and yeah, I think it's good. It's helpful.
Mm-hmm. And I know you will further build it out, and we can look at it again in a few months, and we can all set up time for that. But this looks great. I'm really excited to see this project come to life. It seems really cool. So thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great day, and well, a great night. And
yeah, a great night for us.
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting.
No, but you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Well, thanks a lot, and see you maybe not tomorrow, but see you soon.
In New York? Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.